Hello and a very warm welcome to Fans About Films. This is the 8th episode of my podcast, but it is actually the second English language episode. Greetings to you. I hope you are many who listen, and I have a new guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone out there. My name is Wendell. Very simply, I am an Englishman, so that's what that strange accent is. I am a composer, a pianist, a podcaster. I live in Mexico City, and it is my pleasure to be here today.
That's fantastic. Is there anything else you want to tell us?
Yeah, so I met this lovely gentleman here, Lasse, on Twitter, where I meet all the best people. And yeah, we connected over, I saw your Alice in Wonderland episode, which I believe was the first English language episode that you did.
Yes, it was.
I enjoyed your thoughts. I learned a lot. I thought I had learned everything I needed to know about that film, but no, I learned so much more. So thank you for that.
No problem.
It was a very nice, relaxing chat, and I enjoyed listening and continue to.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. And I enjoy listening to your stuff and also reading your stuff. It's just so much fun always getting the updates. So why don't you tell our listeners what our topic is, because it was kind of your idea.
Absolutely. Well, if there's one thing you should know about me is that I'm dangerous. No, if there's one thing you should know about me is that I am a huge Pixar fan. Who isn't? And I mean, I am looking at my webcam right now, and surrounding the webcam is possibly every Pixar toy in existence. I have littered my desk with these beautiful, amazing, fleshed out characters, and I decided that maybe a good topic for today's episode would be to look at the best and worst of Pixar, some of our favorite movies, some of our not so favorite movies, and just give our opinion and open it up for a hopefully interesting discussion.
Yeah, I actually thought it was a pretty good topic, because I have also my history with Pixar. I am a big fan of them. Always have been, because it is kind of like one of the big franchises for a kid nowadays, and that goes back to the first Toy Story. It's considered a classic nowadays, rightfully so, or for several reasons. But it's kind of interesting not talking about the whole thing, because even though there aren't as many movies as in some other franchises or something like that, there's a lot to say about some of them. So I think we will just browse through some of them, and we will find out which ones are the best and worst in our opinions. Who should start, and which one? And I think it's just going to be a mixture of everything, not just first bad and then good or something, just free flow.
Yeah, just give our thoughts. Yeah, I am here, and I am so enthusiastic about it, but I am actually more interested to hear your thoughts, because obviously I know my own. So, start us off.
Well, let's see. There are several ones I don't much care for, but it's let me start with this. I've come to terms with Pixar in the way that they have to do some movies that are not as good and original as others, because those movies help them to make the good movies. They have to do certain movies that are which are sure to be a hit. That's the reason they are doing a third Cars movie, I guess. And I mean, it's out. It's out now in America. It's not out here in Germany yet. And I hope I don't have to. No, okay. It's not, because there's most of the time kind of a delay because of the dubbing and also like the marketing and everything. Sometimes the international movies start here first, but it depends on the audience. And I think in America they are certain that it's going to be a big hit over here. So whatever.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, in England, we used to, I don't know if it's still the case, but at least when I lived there, we would usually get it before America. And I'm privileged here in Mexico because, strangely, we get it usually a month, at least 2 weeks before America too. So it's quite strange. And interestingly, the new Pixar film coming out very soon, Coco, I think we get that over a month before America. So I'm in a happy place.
But that kind of makes sense with that movie, don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's frustrating on the one hand because I can't talk about it with my friends. I have to keep my lips sealed. But that's interesting.
It certainly is. Well, so that's my thing with Pixar. Now, sometimes they have to do the lesser movies to do the bigger movies. They help them financially. So you can kind of excuse the car franchise with that, but not much. Because the first Cars, I wasn't interested in it at all because I don't care about cars at all. Cars as things. It's great to have cars. It's great to drive around in them. They're great machinery, very great invention. But I don't care about cars.
Yeah. They get you from A to B. So yeah.
So even as a kid, I didn't play with toy cars or anything. I was much more like the swords guy. But whatever. And so I watched the first Cars like later on DVD and didn't really get into it. There are some things I found funny and likable. I liked the hippie truck. I think he was voiced by the late George Carlin. I liked some of the, but that's about it. There were some decent jokes with that, but everything else. The problem is the Cars universe doesn't make sense, in some ways, because even when I watched it on DVD, I wasn't really the big movie buff back then, but even I realized what is the sense of tractor cows, because all the other I actually found that quite kind of insulting, because wouldn't it make much more sense if the tractor cows were like farmers or something, instead of cows? So are they saying that all farmers are stupid with this?
That's always kind of, you touch on a great point, because that's always kind of puzzled me, because sometimes with that series, I mean, it's very, very clear with the Cars films what they're going for and what they're describing, that kind of mid-Western America. But sometimes, I don't know, if I was Midwestern, maybe I would feel a little bit insulted because it kind of takes jabs at it and at the same time celebrates it. And I don't really know where it stands. And yeah, the world is quite difficult to figure out sometimes. I mean, I think it's at the end of the movie, you see like flies that are cars too, like little insects.
And you also see little planes that are birds in the second one, I think.
Yeah.
So that's weird.
It isn't quite fleshed out as much as we are used to with Pixar films, but yeah, it's the same with in the first one, Bessie, the one that pushes out tar on the road. Like she isn't, or he isn't really sentient, but all the other cars are. It's almost like it's 90% there, and then the other 10% is left for your imagination. But I feel the same as you. I don't really care for this franchise as much as the others, but interestingly, after watching Cars 3, and I will be interested in hearing your opinion if you do go and see it, because I actually kind of changed my mind.
I heard something about it, but my problem is I am so not interested in it. I really hope I don't have to see it. There are certain kids' movies coming out I really don't want to see, but I might have to see it because of my little brother. I don't want to see Despicable Me 3 despite having enjoyed the first two, because I'm just done. I'm done with this because they kind of ruined the first movie with all this other stuff. And the Cars movie, I just don't care about them. but the funny thing I'll come to in a second. But the other thing is with the Cars franchise, it's just. It seems like the writers don't really care, you know. It seems like they're just making up things when they need them. You know, it's just, oh, we have an idea for a joke. Does it fit in the universe? Does it make sense? No, it's just a joke. All right, let's stick it in there. It's a
I think it definitely caters more to the children, this one, whereas a really strong Pixar film would cater to everyone of any age. Yeah, I did grow up around a lot of cars. You know, I would line my cars up along my carpet and pretend like there were streets and things like that. We live a very boring life in England, so I grew up around it. But I'm also a huge petrol head. I love Formula One. So strangely, while I didn't really care for the story in the first one, I liked some of the characters, but I didn't really care for the story. The one that most people didn't like, the second one, was the one that I attached to more strongly because it had all those Formula One references. And perhaps because I'm British, I like the spy elements. I enjoyed Finn McMissile. You know, I think I just enjoyed seeing my interests being catered to, because I never expect there to be Pixar does Formula One ever. So this was like my little taste of my interests combined. But that still doesn't make, you know, them good films. It just means that it gives me something to watch and enjoy. I did enjoy the villainous Professor Z in the second film too. He was almost like a classic Bond villain, but at the same time, I think Cars 2 does probably fall at the bottom of my list, just because the story, it focused on Mater, it focused on a character that I didn't care as much, you know, for, and that was maybe its problem. It needed to focus a little more on Lightning, the main character.
Yeah, because that's what I wanted to say earlier. I don't think really tractor cows are the insult to Midwest Americans. I think the real insult is Larry the Cable Guy.
Maybe so. I mean, if you do get to see the third one, it is very, I would say it's quite mature writing considering what we've had so far.
Yeah.
I do think it's the strongest of the bunch, much better sequel than Cars 2, because it knew exactly what story it wanted and needed to tell. It's a little, excuse my throat, it's a little lengthy, it's a little long, which I think is true of all these Cars films. So if you don't like them, you're sat in that seat for a long time, not liking them. So, but yeah, it's definitely the stronger of the three, I think. But yeah, like I said before, they fall at the bottom of the list. It's not that they're awful, it's just that I just don't care for them. That's it.
Because when the first teaser came out, I almost busted a gut laughing at the imagery, you know, like with a writing, like with a text saying, now it all changes or something, and you have like this bleak color scheme, and you have the point of view of a car, and then Lightning McQueen, you know, kind of shattering in slow motion, and I'm sitting there like, what the hell, did Zack Snyder take over or something?
It's pretty powerful. I mean, what you see in the trailer, you know, happens very early in the film, and you know, at least the children around me in the cinema, they were kind of shocked. So they're like lots of gasps. So I think it is working for a lot of the kids who are watching this. But like I said, I could take these films or leave them. I just don't care enough. But But you know, great characters. Nothing about the characters or the character design. It's just the story's a bit lacking for me. That's all.
Yeah, actually, when I didn't want to watch the second one, but my little brother wanted to, because he no big shock, is a big fan of the first one. So I took him to the cinema, and surprisingly, I got much deeper into that one because of the spy aspect, because it didn't focus so much, it didn't focus just on racing, because I just I find car racing so boring. But here, you know, with a spy aspect and actually cars getting killed in horrific ways, you know, like the Bruce Campbell car getting blown up and everything.
Yes.
That was actually really cool. And also like with a pseudo-German Bond villain. I got into that. I actually found that pretty amusing. And also... I kind of liked the twist because I mean, you know, it's a children's film, but I actually didn't see it coming, and I don't know how much sense it made. I forget the details, but it actually
none whatsoever.
And there was one, and I don't much care. You know, I saw it in the German dubbing, and I think the Meta voice isn't quite as annoying in the German version as in the English one, and I don't have a problem with Larry the Cable Guy. It's just, you know, it's really weird how they made him the central character, and as a result, I think they really sidelined him in the third one, from what I've heard.
They did.
So
yeah.
like, we were so sorry. We're so sorry. You know, here he's just, you know, it's kind of like what we did with Jar Jar Binks in episode 2 and 3.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that maybe there was a little backtracking there.
Totally. Because
but yeah, I mean, it's still so enjoyable, and there are definitely some films that are a little lower than these films on my list, but we'll get to those. All right.
I'll
save the surprise.
I'm excited about that. Your worst one is WALL-E, right?
Of course, yeah. And The Incredibles. Oh,
damn it! This is stupid superhero crap. Yeah, no. Damn it! What was it? One of the things there was one scene where Tom Mader made me laugh in the sequel, and that was at the very end, where he just is making faces for no reason. It seems like for no reason, you know. He's like, and I'm like, oh Christ, why is he doing this? And then the camera turns around and he is making faces to one of the British guards. And I'm like, all right, that is funny. That was actually clever, you know. They got me there. And the rest,
it's true.
And the rest, you know, I like the British car. I like the spy stuff. You know, it doesn't make much sense, but whatever. It's a kids' film. It's entertaining. The Giacchino music, the pseudo surfing theme was actually pretty good, and it was visually more interesting because of all the guns and explosions. And what was funny is because in the original, the Finn McMissile car is voiced by Michael Caine, which makes sense. But in the German version, they didn't use the usual voice actor for Michael Caine. They used the German voice actor for Daniel Craig.
Interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
I thought it was very interesting. So the Bond reference was even stronger in the German version, and I really like that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy Michael Caine, but no, that's interesting. Yeah, I noticed because they got some Formula One drivers to do the voicings of certain side characters.
And the German
Lewis
version
Hamilton, I think the German version had Sebastian Vettel, and then obviously Fernando Alonso and people like that. So that's quite interesting. But
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, that talking to you now, it seems like you share similar thoughts. You know, for people who don't care for the Cars franchise as much, we kind of enjoy Cars 2 a little more, and then the people who really enjoy it just couldn't care less for that film. I mean, they really despise it.
Story quality wise, it's probably a lesser film than the first one, but it actually had more stuff in it that I was interested in, because I just don't care about the racing. And you know, technically it might be a worse movie than the first one. It actually was the first critical dud from Pixar, when I'm correct. You know, that was the first one.
It was critically panned.
Yeah, it was the first one that really got panned, and it actually wasn't also a big hit, as big of a hit at the box office. So that was, and so I'm really baffled why they actually bothered to make a third one. And it's not even John Lasseter directing it like in the first two cases, because that was his baby. He is a huge fan of cars and all that stuff, and that was pretty much like a pet project of his. And his wife actually said to him, you might get some backlash because not everybody is as big of a fan of cars as you are. And I'm like, you should have listened.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I mean, I know obviously in the Disney theme parks there is a lot of cars, merchandise and attractions and rides. So I think that definitely plays a big part into it. Yeah,
I went there a few years ago, and it actually was pretty cool. Standing in the middle of Radiator Springs, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's true. I think and. Look, a really terrible Pixar film is still a good film. It's still okay. There's there's still scenes where I'm like, actually, that's pretty good. That's pretty funny. So, I don't want to, criticize them too much. But, it's just when I come to a Pixar film, I'm looking for, strong character arcs, really strong stories on, socio-political commentary and just a really, really interesting presentation of ideas that I haven't seen before. So, I'm judging them by their own standards, their own very, very high standards. But, certainly at the start of this decade, Cars 2, Brave, Monsters University, I think for most people, they kind of fell a little bit in people's estimations, and DreamWorks really started to crank out a lot of, solid content, starting with How to Train Your Dragon. So,
and also Shrek, where they actually were the first. Shrek was the first animated movie Oscar winner. They beat Pixar that year. The very first year they introduced that Academy Award. So they won against Monsters Inc. Yeah,
that's fascinating because it's. I mean, I think certainly when Inside Out came along, after 2015, they're back.
Kind of.
Back. Yeah. Hopefully it continues. Hopefully there's not another lull. But we will see.
Yeah, but everybody has a lull every now and then, and they need those movies, to make the big movies, because they actually, I think they got some backlash for releasing 2 movies in 2015, and obviously one of them, they cared much more about the story and everything, and the other one, it was pretty much like a tech demo of what they could do with animation, at least with animation of environment. Because on a story level, it was just, a bunch of different movies roped into one I've seen a million times before. But, to be fair, The Good Dinosaur might be one of the lesser Pixar movies, but I was actually shocked by how much emotion they got out of it at the end. I actually was near... there was a little tear in my eye at the goodbye scene. So I'm like, God damn it, Pixar! You're doing it again. It's just because I actually went into this movie wanting to just despise it. Based on the trailers and everything, I just wanted to hate it. Coming out and doing my review and just ranting for 30 minutes, but then I'm sitting in front of my camera and I'm like, I can't rant about this because it's not a very good movie, but it really isn't that bad. It's pretty mediocre, but at the end it's so heartfelt and it feels pretty earned, and I was actually pretty shocked by that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's Pixar, always punching us in the feels. It's they always bring such an emotional connection. I think this one and The Good Dinosaur and Brave also, they felt a little more Disney to me, if I can say that. They felt more like a Disney animated classic than, say, Pixar.
Got a good point.
One thing I really enjoyed about The Good Dinosaur, as you mentioned, was the animation. It's a beautiful visual masterpiece.
The water, really the mountains. It's like, why did they even bother animating it, And also, when I watched The Revenant, I kind of recognized some of the environment. So I was like, did they film the same areas as they? Yeah, it actually there were some scenes that kind of looked familiar. And I was actually pretty, I thought it was pretty cool. It seems like they filmed the same areas and animated them, where, you know, in The Revenant they filmed them for real. But I thought that was actually pretty interesting. When you go back and watch both of those movies again, there are some similarities. Yeah, it looks gorgeous, except, you know, for the obvious cartoon quality of the dinosaurs, which I found a little off-putting at first, but I kind of got used to it. And overall, there's not much to say about that one. You know, I don't much care for it, but the emotional payoff is actually it's actually pretty strong, and I was actually I was a bit baffled by it, you know. But for the most part, you know, it's not it's a movie I'm not gonna see again. You know, it's a one and done, because it just hasn't much merit.
There's not a lot of narrative for me to attach to, so yeah, it doesn't really appeal to my personal taste as much. If there's other Pixar movies on the shelf, I'm probably going to reach for those first. But I again, you know, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. I feel like I'm going to say this a lot this episode.
And also,
it's not a bad movie, but I don't care for it.
Just like Brave, it was one of those movies that went through like different writers and directors. You know, they just pushed it aside and from person to person with an attempt to fix it. And you can kind of, and I'm sitting there at the end credits, I'm like, this has like 7 or 8 writers, really?
Yeah.
The good dinosaur with his kind of dialogue and so, that was actually pretty weird to me. Which brings us to the other movie that was like that. This is an interesting story with Brave, because when I saw the teaser trailer, I think I didn't get that excited for a Pixar movie, like for any Pixar movie, because it looked so different. It didn't look like anything Pixar had ever done before. I was very, very excited. You know, you just see this redhead chick, and she has a bow, and there's this big scary bear, and it's some kind of magic. It looked awesome. And then the later trailers also intrigued me. You know, there was a little bit more of a plot. So I was like, all right, so it's about this. You know, it's about this mother-daughter relationship, but it's also about, you know, it's about the girl who wants to be strong in an environment she really isn't allowed to be. And I was like, okay, I've kind of seen this before, but it's from Pixar, and I'm sure they can do something else with it. So for the first, and I went to see it alone. I don't know why my little brother wasn't there. Maybe he was a little too young, and I'm with certain movies I'm gonna see them first alone to see if he wouldn't get scared. I'm glad I went to this alone, because I guess he would have gotten scared, especially in the end. Right now, not anymore. You've seen this movie now, but for the first half hour or 45 minutes, I was okay. You know, I was getting into it. I liked the characters. I liked the setup. But it was weird how the queen seemed to have more power than the king. It's really weird how she always says, you know, do this, and the father's like, oh, come on, you know. And so I'm like, why doesn't the father get more influence on her? Because it's just so weird how the queen always pushes her, and the father really doesn't care. That was a little bit difficult for me, but it was okay. Also, when the witch shows up, I actually found that amusing, and it was kind of pandering, but I liked it. And so I was actually really into it, and I didn't know where the movie was going to go. And then she gives her mother the cake, and I'm like, oh wow, where does this lead to? You know, I was, and then she kind of falls down, and the blanket is on her, and I'm like, what is she turning into? A snake or something? You know, it was just, I really thought, oh, she's gonna be some monster now and everything. And then she rises up, and you see she's a bear. And the second I saw that, I had I threw the biggest fit ever, because I was so angry. I almost got up and left. That was the first time I got so angry in the theater. I almost stood up, because in that second, the whole movie just rushed through me, and I knew where it was going to go, and I knew what they were going to do with it. And for some reason, I stayed. And to be fair, it's not badly done. It's entertaining, it's heartfelt, it's amusing. I like the little boys, and I like the whole spiel with how the Scots hunt them and the little boys distract them. I like that. I like the ending fight and everything, and I like the ending as well. So I'm not gonna say like it's a bad movie or it's my least favorite, because it actually did this cookie cutter, seen it a million times before story well, kind of like how we did it with A Good Dinosaur, but this one I think it's the better movie. But that's just the problem. I've seen it before, and I've seen it before from Disney also, and Brother Bear was a stronger movie than this one. And it just, it just frustrates me, because I actually heard that the witch character and the plot about the witch, everything, that didn't come into the movie until like half of the animation was finished. So, really? Yes. So you can see, and I'm just baffled how that movie won the Academy Award that year, because that was like the beginning of a time where the Oscars really started getting unfair, where it's a few years ago they were still fair, in the mid to the early 2000s to the sometimes after Return of the King got Best Picture, sometimes after that it seemed like they wanted to make up for the fact that a fantasy movie earned Best Picture, because now they're off the rails now, and it's really, really frustrating seeing the people who get nominated for certain things. With actors and everything, I don't have much of a problem with when it goes to like sometimes effects or cinematography, and especially music. If the fact that Dario Marianelli and James Newton Howard didn't get nominated for their respective scores, right. Kubo and the Two Strings and Fantastic Beasts, that really, really angered me a lot. Because you can't be serious about this. At least, Kubo really should have earned at least a nomination, because that was one of the best scores of the last few years. And it also was integral to the plot. The plot is actually, it has something to do about music and everything, so the music is all the more important. But yeah, whatever. That frustrates me. But in case with Brave, the movie has a lot of problems, and the character development is sometimes lacking. And also, I think they really push it with how scary the bear is, because that is the stuff of nightmares. That's like, even, scary, yeah. Even like Don Bluth couldn't have come up with something that was more scary.
Exactly. No, it's incredible. Yeah, I mean, I think I was at least initially interested because it's set in the motherland. It's set in Britain, Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, this has got to be interesting, Okay, Hollywood doesn't have a great history of doing Europe well or having any actual real research knowledge of Europe.
Braveheart.
For example, Spain and Mexico are the same country apparently. Even a quick Google search will inform you a little better. But but still, they did a good job with that. They got the Scottish composer Patrick Doyle in. He did a great score. It's nice to have that in the canon.
Yeah.
It focuses on that mother-daughter relationship, but still the story is, it can kind of be summed up into 5 words. Turns into bear, then listens. Like she listens to her daughter. So it's like, so I mean, it's interesting to hear you say that the witch wasn't there. Which, wow, this was really bare bones without her. There just isn't much there to grab onto, and I think at this time there was just not a lot going on. And again, like I said, it felt more classic Disney than Pixar, or like any animation studio could have put this one out. And 2 years after How to Train Your Dragon, I think I just expected a lot more. And again, we're just judging Pixar by its own standards.
Yeah.
the story is so freaking amazing most of the time, and this was kind of just like a subpar TV episode. So
yeah, and also I don't know.
And listen, another thing I'm a huge fan of is Star Trek, and guess what? You cannot have 700 plus episodes and that many movies and not have some bad eggs. You know, I mean, there's going to be some things that aren't as good. But I mean, I like Merida. I like the princess herself. Of course, Pixar's only Disney princess. So there we go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, because of the first teaser, I don't know if I'm the only one who's thinking like this, but the first teaser also gave me like a strong Miyazaki vibe. It actually looked like something that he might have done, you know. If he did, you know, 3D and everything, and also in the finished movie you can see some of those influences, kind of.
Yeah.
And I find that very, very interesting. You know, Pixar kind of doing something different. But yeah, I think we said everything we need to say about those.
Pretty much, you know, and the only thing I would say is that maybe the story itself couldn't decide on what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they called the movie Brave, which I understand, but it's at least in the English version, but I was still like, maybe there's a better title than that. I know it was meant to be called The Bear and the Bow originally, which still doesn't quite work, so it's pretty clear that the story isn't even sure itself what it's meant to be and what it's trying to be. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's like putting beans on toast and doing that well. Well, you've done that well because that's a really simple dish to do, you know?
Yeah.
It's not lasagna, or it was, you know, maybe something a little harder to pull off, but yeah, but still, you know, I enjoy it. I will watch it, and if it's on, I'm probably going to watch it until the end. Of course, I will close my eyes when the bear appears. But
that's great. Yeah, maybe Brave was like the working title, you know, because of Braveheart or something. I don't know. And then they forgot.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Mate. Oh,
and then they forgot.
That makes it even worse for me.
Yeah, and then they forgot to change it. You know, kind of like Tommy Wiseau in The Room.
Well, better brave than freedom, I guess.
Whatever. Yeah. That actually is an interesting theory. You know, maybe they didn't pay someone to think of a good title, because in Germany the movie is called Merida, Legend of the Highlands. Of course,
that is a movie that makes me want to go to the cinema.
Yeah, because Merida, Legende der Highlands. So I just I translated the title into English, but it actually, yeah, it's the German translation of Merida, Legend of the Highlands, which is kind of it's a better fitting title. You know, sometimes Germany does that right, because most of the time they just change titles for no reason. You know, like how For the Dark World became For the Dark Kingdom over here.
Oh, okay.
It was something. That's something about German policy, kind of, because you can't have two movies with kind of the same title in Germany. There's some kind of rights problem or something. So
that makes sense.
So and there's a Russian movie distributed in Germany or something that was called like The Dark World. So they couldn't call the third Thor movie that. And also, The Huntsman Winter's War was called The Huntsman and the Ice Queen over here, which makes more sense because there's no Winter's War in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a whole other topic, maybe for another time. But yeah, that's actually kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, we are already talking about the weaker ones, so just let's stay that way, you know, so we can enjoy the good stuff later, you know, kind of like a dessert.
I agree, you know, and like you said, it's not, they're not terrible, just slightly weaker, so...
Yeah, none of them I think is terrible, you know. So...
Yeah, there is one that I have to get off my chest, actually, and maybe better do it here than later.
All right.
But... yeah, it's something that I know a lot of my friends don't agree with, but it's A Bug's Life, and it has some problems for me. And while I definitely enjoyed it as a kid, the older I get, the more I see problem after problem after problem after problem. And yes, they are my problems, and I recognize that, everyone else can enjoy it without these. But I think that the kind of general problem with it for me is that it's such a dark film. And what I mean by that is it kind of feels much more of an adult universe. I mean, yes, Flick is in search of mean, evil bugs. The whole ant colony sends Flick, to almost certain danger. They're always trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
There's very few kind of positive moments in the film, except for, my only shining beacon of positivity is Dot, the princess's younger sister, because she is really the only character who believes in Flick, because she feels like an outsider herself and she's not able to fly. And of course, when she does sprout her wings, that kind of gives Flick the belief in himself, the belief that he can in fact return and save the colony. So yeah, aside from that, that is an important character to be there, because without that, let me just, I don't want to rant about this, but I very well could do. The words die, dead, and death are used so often in this movie. It's supposedly kid-friendly, this movie, but there's there's even euthanasia. So if you've all forgotten, at one point Flick even asks another bug to kill him. What?
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, you're right.
The kids in film, like the younger ants, the children, whatever they're called, I don't know. They even hear a grasshopper say how their boss, their queen, is going to be squished just to teach them all a lesson. The kids almost burn to death when the bird crash lands. Then Flick gets beaten 2 minutes later. It's so kind of mean-spirited. I just spend the entire film tense. Even the circus is kind of failing, when we first see it. No one likes the show. At one point, even the stick insect says, "Our reputation precedes us," So it's kind of... the more I watch it, the more I'm getting just this dark, constant tension, and that is not really true to Pixar. And look, I get it. The world is beautiful. I enjoyed seeing bugs. They pulled off some really difficult technical aspects of this world. I think in general, the story just doesn't engage me enough. It's a little too dark for me. It's a foregone conclusion before it ever gets off the ground. It's a little predictable. It's not, I find myself a little distracted with this film, sadly. I'm kind of reaching for my phone or doing other things instead of, watching it. So, yeah, I mentioned that because one thing that people criticize Pixar a lot for is the suicide in The Incredibles, and we'll come to that later. That I don't really care, because it not to make light of it, but I felt it was kind of tongue in cheek. It was for laughs, and at least when he's saved and he didn't want to be saved and blah blah blah. I didn't really mind that, but I would remind everyone of just all the death in this film. Watch it again and see for yourself.
Also
maybe I'm the only one, but yeah.
Also, the bad guy like kills like 3 of his guys, with like this avalanche of nuts or whatever it was.
Right, yeah, and actually, I figured it out. I don't know if you watch The Walking Dead, but I do enjoy this villain Hopper quite a bit. If you think about it, he is Negan from The Walking Dead.
He is. He totally is.
He's Negan, right? He's the animated Negan. Before Negan was ever conceived, his gang even brings out like a rabid zombie-looking grasshopper with metal.
That was just weird. That was totally weird. I didn't get that one at all.
No. But yeah, I mean, as I was watching it, I was just thinking, oh my God, this guy's Negan. They're practically a biker gang as well. He's always ordering his cronies. He's like, let's ride, and then their wings suddenly rev up like a motorbike.
Yeah, I like that.
He's such a badass. He's so horrible to everyone. He is the animated Pixar Negan.
Great. That's a great summary. Yeah, I kind of disagree with you on certain points because...
Please, go ahead. Yeah.
Because it is a film that I think it kind of had it... I think it kind of had a hard time because it came after Toy Story, and Toy Story did a lot of things different than most of animated kids movies. There wasn't really... Because A Bug's Life feels much more traditional in the way that there's an obvious villain, there's an obvious hero, where in Toy Story it was much more gray area, you didn't really have a villain, the closest a villain was like, the kid who likes to destroy his toys. So yeah, in this universe it kind of makes him like an evil overlord and a serial killer, but in broad terms it's like, he's kind of like a normal kind of troubled kid. So, and in that one you also had like two characters who are kind of like dicks to each other, so and one of them tries to kill the other one at certain points, or at least tries to get rid of him, and he acts really selfish and has to come to terms at the end. So yeah, A Bug's Life being much more traditional, I think, was kind of like a tip-off in a way. So, and it is a bright movie, it's colorful. I kind of disagree with you in the terms of it being dark. It has its dark moments, but that's nothing compared to some of the things Disney did, in like Hunchback or even like in Snow White. So, and even Toy Story has some dark, creepy stuff in it. So I don't have a problem with that, because I think that's what kids can handle. The kind of zombie thing is a little much. I don't know what that was about, but. And also, like, the villain getting eaten alive, I have a twisted sense of humor in that regard, and even as a kid, I loved his death. It was actually,
I probably did too. To be fair,
I really liked it. I liked, how they were kind of like the biker gang. I have some problems with the movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's a fine movie. It's an entertaining and cool kids flick. It seems a little long at times, but I love the circus bugs. I love this gang. And
we fully represented. We have an English character and a German character.
Yeah, I love the chemistry they have. I love the jokes they do. I'm a beautiful butterfly, and I love I love that aspect, and I like also how he thinks they are killers. I like that plot, how he thinks they are killers, and then it turns out they are just circus artists. What I don't enjoy, I don't enjoy the ant colony much, because they are all assholes. I hate that princess, the adult princess, because she's excuse my phrasing, but she's a real bitch. And compared to ants is. I think Ants is kind of like the stronger movie. It's also the much darker and more realistic movie, but that princess character I really liked. In comparison,
and I don't want this to shade my opinion, but I mean, when I was a kid, I remember having Ants on VHS, and I certainly watched that one more. But if anything, that kind of lends credence to what I'm saying, because I don't really tire of that one. Whereas, and I didn't really have problems with A Bug's Life as a kid. I loved it, and of course, I still have moments. But I think the more I watch it, the more I don't know, that dark stuff just kind of bothers me. And yeah, I mean, I recognize it's my personal problem, but I think even in the story, kind of, it frustrates me as a 30-year-old.
Yeah,
there's one moment where they say and this is again the bitch princess, as we'll call her from now on. She kind of mentions about how Flick lied to them about the circus bugs. You lied to the colony. Well, well, guess what, Princess? You lied to Flick when you sent him away. You just wanted to get rid of him. I mean, hypocrites, you know?
Yeah, they really are.
And I mean, even the circus books, they tell Flick to say the word and they'll follow him into battle, which kind of, for me, just serves the script when it needs it to, because they couldn't wait to leave at every opportunity. They all knew that there was, you know, bad juju afoot. You know, a mad hopper is not going to suddenly magically be kind to them. And yeah, just the story moments and motivations are just a little weak. And second film aside, coming from Toy Story, there are kind of no strong character arcs to speak of, because the film is more story-driven, you know, than character-motivated. And I get that. And I think that's probably and again, it's my problem, but it's my big problem with it. You know, I'm not really drawn to it. Flick doesn't really grow. I mean, by the end of the film, he's just recognized by the colony for his ingenuity, as he always should have been, you know? Which is actually the only, and it doesn't really affect me that much, but the only thing that bothers me about Toy Story is that time and time again, Woody is right. He is proved right by the end of the film, and yet still, like, Potato Head never believes him. You know, it's just a kind of you know, funny thing. But yeah, again, you know, these more story-driven films, you know, I don't latch onto as much, but it's the character motivations and the really strong characters that Pixar does really well that kind of keep me coming back to Pixar. So that's why I have problems with it. But like I said, you know, by no means a bad film.
Yeah. Actually, you were speaking of growing of a hero. Some of the other characters actually grow much more than him, literally, you know, because the little princess learns to fly and the caterpillar turns into a butterfly. So they have much more of a development than him, but which is actually pretty funny when you take it that way. And also, that's the last point I'm going to make about The Bugs Life, because we move on. It has just the worst Randy Newman song ever.
That's kind of downbeat as well, no? It's kind of...
On the bugs.
I mean that score... That score is great, you know, but it's... you know, he does a good job with the scoring moments. The Flick Machine is amazing, you know, and I love Randy Newman, and I'll defend him to death. But yeah, even the song, it just kind of feels down and dour and dark, and I'm looking at it and thinking, is this Pixar? You know, I mean, usually I'm crying after the first 2 minutes of a Pixar film, you know.
To me, it just feels lazy. The song feels so lazy. They actually did in some of the honest. I think the honest trailer for Toy Story, they did a great Randy Newman parody, and they reference also the Bugs Life song, which I found was just hysterical. Because in reality the song is so... I think Will Sasso plays Randy Newman in that sketch. And he was...
seen it, yes.
It's so amazing. And because the Bugs Life song sucks.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and just to kind of throw some... I don't want to be a negative Nancy, just to throw some positivity its way. I think there was a very kind of strong Pixar message behind it, because Flick is an inventor, you know, like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He's the Caractacus Potts of the bug world, you know. I mean, he mentions in the beginning how we just need to use our imagination, which is almost a reference to Pixar itself. And I love the characters, you know, so much apart from the aforementioned princess. But yeah, it's... You know, again, I don't want to be too down on it. I just think it's probably the only film that grows. Well, it doesn't grow at all. You know, it's weaker every single time I watch it, and that kind of makes me not want to watch it, because there are a lot of good things. You know.
Yeah, it doesn't grow. It stays small, like an insect.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a bug. You know, a bug's life. Nothing big. You know, but no harm done. Yeah, that's actually pretty funny. Now the other one, I think I'm kind of... My feeling about this movie is kind of controversial, I guess. But I can't help it. I watched it in the cinema with my little brother. I enjoyed it for what it was, because I didn't expect anything. So it actually was better than I thought it was going to be, even though it doesn't bring much to the table in terms of story. And that's Monsters University. It is the definition of a pointless prequel, you know? It totally is. It's a pointless addition to a Pixar movie I really, really enjoy a lot. It's one of the earliest cinema experiences I can remember, actually. But Monsters University, it's just, you know, it's just every university movie, you know, kind of like a college shenanigans Monster House movie. But for what it is, it's done fine. Because I like these characters and I like the monster designs, and they do a couple of cute jokes, and also the finale is pretty well done and pretty atmospheric and also pretty dark for Pixar, pretty creepy, and I like that. And I also, you know, I enjoy also the music, I enjoy the animation. It's just, you know, it's for me, it's the definition of a pointless but just fine, enjoyable movie. I don't have much of a problem with it, even though it also goes on a little long. But whatever. For me, it's a harmless, fun film, because I know a lot of people actually don't like that one. They think it's one of the worst Pixar movies, and I wouldn't go that far. It's just, you know, it's pretty pointless, but pointless doesn't always mean it's awful. And it isn't awful. To me, it's actually fine.
Well, that's fascinating, because we're trading punches here, because I actually love this film.
Oh,
I don't know. This is like my Bug's Life. It's kind of it's actually well, you know, first of all, the only prequel in the Pixar canon so far, and you know, possibly ever. It's actually my favorite prequel ever. It's lovely. I just love this one. I don't really know why it didn't work for most people. You know, I mean, for people to say like it's really, really bad, it's the worst film, I think that's absolutely untrue, and people need to watch it again and give it a second chance. I personally, I mean, I think I enjoyed it more than the original, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I enjoyed the original. You know, and it makes me enjoy Monsters, Inc. Even more now too, because so many things were fleshed out, you know, and even the fact that it's a college movie, I think it's one of very few college movies that I like, because it makes fun of the typical stereotypes in that genre.
Yeah,
it is a satire, and it's hilarious. It's kind of a laugh per minute, you know, and cleverly so. You know, it's not well, the jokes all work within the context of the universe. It's not throwaway pandering jokes, or like in the Disney Renaissance, like Aladdin.
Yeah,
you know, the genie is repeatedly making jokes from our culture, not its own world, the world of Aladdin, and I think that's what I like about it. And to me, it's kind of like, if I can say this, it really is kind of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire done right. You know, because
I haven't thought of that. That's genius.
It's like the challenges in the Triwizard Tournament, but just much more inventive and better to watch. It's so creative, you know. One of my biggest takeaways from Monsters, Inc., I think everyone's actually, was Mike and Sully's friendship. And Monsters University, it's the beginning, yes, but it explores their relationship further, how it all began, how one of the greatest friendships in the Pixar filmography is formed. So at least from that sense, despite me going in and thinking, I don't know, a prequel, I don't know about this, I actually left the cinema and I couldn't stop gushing about it. And I wanted to get a more informed opinion. So whenever I want an informed opinion, the first person I go to is my wife, and she, you know, without any guided nods, you know, from me, I wasn't guiding her in any way. You know, she had very similar opinions of me. She loved Monsters, Inc., and she loved this one, you know, perhaps even more. We just thought it was done really, really well. So many great scenes, you know, the whole library scene. I think that's one of my favorite scenes in possibly any film ever.
It's awesome.
Because I can watch watch it and enjoy it so much. And you know, I do get some people's criticism of it, but I think, you know, going into it without any expectations and just giving it a fair chance, I do think, you know, on second watching, everyone will get, you know, a much better time out of it. And to be fair to this prequel, why it is my favorite prequel is because I can watch this and enjoy it without seeing the other film. And maybe that sounds obvious, because you should be able to watch other prequels, you know, but let's be honest, sometimes that's not the case. This one even feels like it was made first, you know, and watching them back to back, watching this one first in order and then Monsters Inc. It's just a pleasure. And like any Pixar franchise, it's very difficult for me to separate the films. So, you know, whenever anyone asks me, you know, what's your top 3 favorite Pixar films, I can't really answer them, so I usually just answer them by franchise. You know, for me, all the Toy Story films fit together. For me, these Monsters films fit together very well. So, you know, I don't know. This was just an absolute pleasant surprise for me. You know, and I really don't get the criticism. I get why people don't enjoy it as much, but to say it's the worst one, wow.
Yeah. Because what was it? Yeah, for me it was just, you know, a fine surprise, because I didn't expect anything. And in terms of you saying it is a prequel you can watch without knowing the original, on a story level, I actually think it would be better to watch this first, because when you watch the original first, you know that Mike has to fail, you know, that he doesn't get his life goal, and so that makes it as a prequel feel pretty pointless, because you're spending the whole time watching him training, and you know he's not a Scara at the end. You know, you just know it, and that's, you know, that kind of sucks. You know, it's actually pretty sad how he's destined to fail. In terms of a story, it is better to watch first, but in terms of, you know, getting the technicals of a world down, because I think in the first one they explain how the scares work, you know, how they power them. I think they explain that much better. So certain references you won't really understand as much when you watch Monsters University first. The same case, you know, with something like The Hobbit or something, which is a movie series you could technically watch before without knowing Lord of the Rings, but there are. In that one, there are much more references you won't be able to get, which makes it which makes it pretty hard. Yeah, so it's kind of difficult to figure out. Yeah, and I agree, there are a lot of great scenes, and in the German version, they have some famous German comedians voicing, you know, the monsters in their group, you know, all those kind of loser monsters, which really fit the characters well. And it was fun playing, you know, who can spot the voice, kind of, because I actually didn't recognize some of the voices known here in Germany. And yeah, the library part is just great. My biggest laugh I got from the gag where the mother stays behind in the car and I'm listening to my music, and then you hear like this death metal song playing and she just sits calmly in the car. That was the biggest laugh for me, because that was just such a great throwaway gag.
Pixar it's very good at a lot of things, but one thing I love is that in the sequels, to me, again, just my opinion, that's all I can give, it always introduces very, very interesting characters in the sequels and prequels. You know, I love this loser team. You know, they're
they're fun.
They're amazing. They're really fleshed out. Even in the English language version, you know, the voices match really well. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased because Monsters Inc. is really, really, really high on my list. You know, I mean, I don't really have an official ranking. I mean, I kind of have a top 3 for Pixar, but it changes based on the day, my mood, what I've eaten, so many things.
So same here. Same here. I totally get you.
At least with Monsters Inc., I think the universe that they created with Monsters Inc. is a place where I would love to live and work in. I mean, energy crisis aside, we've got one of those ourselves, so just all the colourful characters, both colourful in illustration and in personality. It's just so fun, and I can't. I can't have imagined, them to, like I said, succeed, in creating a better film than the first. But I think, to me, that maybe they managed it. Yeah, I might be very much alone in the multiverse with that opinion, but hey, I just enjoy it.
Yeah, that's no problem. Difference of opinion. That's great. You are the first one who thinks that way, and that you might be the only one, but that's actually pretty cool. I think I watched it twice. I watched it later when it came on TV with someone who hadn't seen it, and they really got into it and found it pretty funny, and they were adults, And so, yeah, that was actually pretty cool. I think that's it for the lesser kind of Pixar movies, because I can't...
Yeah, I think, well, at least for me, I've definitely crossed the halfway point. I definitely wouldn't wish to call anything Monsters lesser, but certainly in the greater world, most people's opinions, I think that's definitely where, it's definitely bottom of most people's list. But again, I don't know. Give it another chance, guys.
Yeah, so I think we can go to the Toy Story franchise now, which
let's do this.
Which I think we can discuss in all three movies at once, kind of, because my opinion of them is, I think I actually watched the second one first as the kid. I'm not quite sure, but I think I watched it. I watched the second one first and really liked it, And the first one is kind of a darker movie, It has some creepy parts in it with like the monster toys in the dark room and everything, and also like
scary.
The whole Sid stuff and everything. So I actually that kind of put me off as a kid, and the second one didn't have that scary factor. So it actually, the first one is a fun movie. It's great, and also it's like one of the most important movies ever made, in the history of cinema, in so many ways. In the technical, we don't even have to go into the technical stuff, how it was the first computer animated movie, and everything.
Yeah, it started the ball rolling, yeah.
It did, and it also, it was a big surprise. It came out in a time where CGI was everywhere in action movies, and everyone was surprised that the first fully CGI animated movie wasn't an action movie. It was a kids movie. So the gamble was high, and it paid off so well. I like the characters, I like the story, I like the concept, even though, in a way the concept doesn't make much sense when you apply it to Buzz Lightyear, who doesn't know he's a toy. So and they establish that they don't do it automatically. They actually choose to get stiff and plop down when humans approach. So why?
And then Andy enters and he acts like the rest. Yeah, that is a bit weird.
That's weird. But I let that slide. That's a little plot hole in an otherwise pretty good movie. The second one I like a lot more. It has some great parody scenes. I always love so hard when they do the Jurassic Park reference with a toy car, and I like the story. I like the concept. I like how they go far away. I like the new characters also. The third one, I'm split about it, because when I first saw it, I liked it fine, and when I saw it the second time, my opinion hasn't much changed. I just think it's highly overrated, the third one, because it's not that it's a bad movie. It's not. It's a pretty good movie. I just don't get why everybody praises it like that, because I don't get what it does better than the other two. I think it has a good concept. I think it has a good, villain and all that stuff. I just think it goes way too dark towards the end, way too heavy, and the ending is also a little bit corny. How Andy says goodbye to his toys, and it just wasn't a big tearjerker scene for me. It really wasn't. It was just like something that was in the movie, and I didn't get much out of it emotionally, at least out of that scene. But the rest, I like the little girl, and I like how she owns the toys now and everything. I like how they moved on. And I actually wouldn't mind if that was the end of a series, but I'm hearing about them making a fourth one. I'm like, whatever. But it's a good movie. I just have some detail problems with it, but I don't have much to say about the Toy Story franchise. That's pretty much my opinion of the 3 movies. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. It's nice to hear that. I think, and I say that because that is a different opinion to what I read most. I struggle with this one because I do think that the third movie is the best one. I think, at least for me, I think they get better and better. I do think, Toy Story 2 is a little better than the first one. But for me, the third one, I have problems with it because it's just, I feel so sad. And I know, I watched this last night, and I watched it with my wife, and she said, why do we have to watch something that's so depressing? And it's for the right reasons, and it does it very well. And of course, when I see a Pixar film or any movie, I want to be taken across the emotional rainbow. I want to feel everything in the spectrum,
except for pissed off, maybe.
Exactly. But yeah, it's just so sad with the. Just before the aliens rescue them with the core, that them holding hands. I think what it does and what it does for Pixar, and it is the kind of epitome of this, is the thing that Pixar does best, at least for me, is friendship. And this film absolutely has that in spades. Like it just shows what friends can do for each other, and the power of friendship, and not wishing to be corny or cheesy with that. I think that's a very deliberate and strong message that Pixar is always putting out there. But I think this kind of ultimately nailed it on the head, and I do think they got better. At least for the first Toy Story, it was probably one of the first movies I owned on VHS. I think this and Twister, strangely, but yeah. And later Fifth Element, which is a cracking film. But
literally,
yeah, where it all started, the nostalgia. The first Toy Story was a pretty amazing start for them on so many levels, but mostly for me, it was them doing an ensemble cast right from the get-go and getting it right.
Yeah.
One of the very few ensemble cast movies I've seen in recent years that was done very well was The Avengers. I thought that was handled very well. Each character got their fair amount of time. And yes, it is difficult to do that, but to have so many characters and so many characters I care about just after 10 minutes, I mean, the character, and like I said, I'm a character guy. I love character-driven stories rather than things just happen to characters. I love them to be motivated to do things. So, yeah, I absolutely love this franchise to death. People say it's the perfect trilogy. Yes, there are certain problems here and there, but I wouldn't dispute that. I wouldn't argue with it whatsoever. And can I just say, at least for the first film, that is so scary as a child. I mean, when did this come out? 95. So I was 8 years old when this film came out.
Jesus.
And the baby's head on mechanical legs.
Yeah, that's incredibly creepy.
But honestly, for me, just the moment when Sid's toys come to life in front of his very eyes, and Woody speaks to Sid face to face.
So play nice.
Was scary at me for a very different reason. Because at that time, okay, I was 8, but forgive me, I thought my toys came to life because of this movie. I very much believed that. I was watching this, and totally drawn into that aspect of it.
Did you actually expect, after watching the video, the phone rang like 7 days?
Well, I had a lot of toys at that time. I mean, I was the prime age for it. I was surrounded by every toy of every color, shape, and size. But it just I don't know. It connected with me at such a good age, and it's kept me loyal to Pixar ever since. Because I've always had Pixar in my life. I think that at least for to speak to Toy Story 3 maybe being a little bit overrated, I think that comes from people so pleased that they didn't mess it up. I think that's where that comes from. They were like, oh, thank goodness it ended on a good note. And then of course they announced Toy Story 4. But I mean, I'm refraining from any judgment on that, because again, just like Monsters, I enjoy living in this universe. I want to see more of these characters for another 2 hours. I mean, yes, we had the Toy Story shorts and Toy Story Toons and other series, but at least for me, I'm like, I'm not moaning about spending more time with these characters, and it's...
Yeah, I totally get it.
But whatever, and it does, if you don't want to watch that film and you just want to end with this film, well, guess what? You can do just that.
Totally. Totally.
You don't have to see that film. But, I don't know what I can say about this, because this is the bread and butter of everything that Pixar have done. Just everything about it is amazing. So at least half of my desk is absolutely covered in Toy Story toys. So yes, I can't really judge it critically almost, because I'm so biased. I love it so much.
I get it. I have a much more critical approach about it, because I have memory of it as a kid, but it was not like this big nostalgia piece for me. But you actually made a very good point. People just being glad that they didn't screw it up with the third one. That actually is a good point. I guess that was one of the big factors. And anything else I already said. That was cool, because I thought, oh man, Toy Story, it's kind of difficult to talk about for me, but right now, oh no, it's actually not. I actually said my 2 cents pretty quickly. I'm really glad about that. Let's go over to, even though we touched on it many times now, let's go over to Monsters Inc., which is still, I think, is still one I actually enjoy the most of all of them. It's not like one of my favorites, but I just enjoy it on a humor and on a character and on a concept level. And this one actually proves a point about Pixar, that most of their ideas aren't that original. When you go back to Toy Story and also look at Monsters Inc., these concepts have been done already in certain media, in TV and books and everything. But what Pixar does so well, it's kind of like how the Disney Renaissance era did it. They updated it and took their own spin on it, on those concepts, on how Disney did it on those classic fairy tales. And in Monsters Inc., it shows a lot, how there's a reason why they have to scare kids and everything, and how it's all technically connected. And I love the characters, I love the designs, and I think that movie is also, in its dark spots, it's dark for a reason. It makes sense when it needs to be kind of scary, because the monsters are supposed to be scary. And I just, I love the voice acting in the English version and the German version. I love the animation. I love the slapstick. I love the humor. I like the villain a lot. I just enjoy that movie so much. I don't really have much to say about it and don't have much to criticize, because I just think it's a great animated comedy with a really great concept and a very, very heartfelt, wonderful ending, which I really like. And I would have liked them to do that approach, to make a sequel, with the girl growing up, and how they get, or maybe like a short film. I don't know how you can do a big story out of it now that kids aren't poisonous anymore or something. But whatever, I just like the movie so much. The finale with all the different doors and them like traveling through the world is a lot of fun. The slapstick is amazing, and yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm kind of fangasming here for a moment, but it's just...
No, let's do it, because I feel exactly the same. It's just incredible. I mean, my bestie, my best friend Will, he has so much love for this franchise, and suffice to say, I mean, if we existed in pixelated form, we would very much be Mike and Sully, and it describes our friendship a little bit. I have one eye and he's very furry. No, but it's just with look, Pixar is all about story and adventure, and there's a constant focus on friendships again, and nowhere is that better than Monsters Inc. But everything is done right. It's so creative. It's so genius. It's a beautiful, colorful world. The maybe something we haven't talked enough about. The soundtrack, the jazzy soundtrack. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, one of the better Randy Newman Pixar works. Yeah, I also really like the song.
But yeah, it's an incredible film, and it handles everything very, very well. It's maybe it does borrow a little bit from other things, but I think there is a lot of originality to be found in here, and just the idea of going through and having this door to almost another time or dimension, or however you want to think about it. Pixar theory fans, we hear you. But it just deals with everything so well, and really is a near perfect story for me. It's just so it's one of those films, isn't it, that you put on, and even if you catch a glimpse on the television, you're there. You're there until the end of the film. You're not going anywhere, or at least I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's just amazing, and I really think this is one of the. I mean, they're all amazing, but this is one of the strongest voice casts, at least in the English version too.
It really is.
They match their characters so well. I mean, and let's not forget, I almost have to keep reminding myself of this. Pixar is bringing inanimate objects to life. Never for one moment am I watching a Toy Story film and thinking, oh, toys. Never for one moment am I watching a Monsters film and thinking, oh, these are monsters. I'm just so invested in these characters and where their character is heading that I just get lost in the story, and that's a credit to the amazing writing in this one.
Yeah, and also they bring out emotion where you don't expect it. You watch the beginning and you're like, all right, this is a fast-paced creative comedy, and they get emotional so well at the end. That is actually a tearjerker scene, and it's so great. That's what Pixar also is really, really great in. And I like how they establish the big plot point, where laughter is stronger than crying. Also, great message, a great subliminal message. But how they establish it in a very quick scene where it goes so fast that you notice it, but you don't realize how important that is. They're like, what was that? And I don't know, whatever. She at least she stopped crying. And how they aren't as obvious about it at first. How they don't over-explain it, and they take their time to establish that concept.
Yes.
And just, also like some of the greatest lines, maybe we could, why don't we keep it? I always wanted to have a pet that can kill me.
No, it's amazing. It's almost like having with Mike Wazowski, it's like having a stand-up comedian in a Pixar film. It's just amazing. Just the sudden outburst of "So put that thing back where it came from, so help me." It's genius little moments, and with all that comedy and the story just being so interesting, and even the character of Boo is just fascinating. She's definitely one of my favorite characters, and when you come back to it time and time again, that's when you pick up on laughter is more powerful than screams, and all this thing. It's very, very layered, and Pixar just does such a good job of layering that, which keeps the longevity there, keeps me coming back to it time and time again. You know, it's thought provoking in a very, very clever and subtle way, and that is the fabric of a near perfect film.
Yeah, and also it feels so real. It feels like a real workplace, you know. It's also recognizable.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's so recognizable with the characters and the environment and the stuff they have to do. And I love the running gag how on the advertising he's always like blanked out. That's just fantastic, and he doesn't care, you know. He's like,
wow, and yeah,
I'm on TV. And could you repeat please the song line he says, because I have to make a joke about that one.
Oh, yeah, the put that thing back where it came from, or so help me.
Yeah, because that's actually the movie Fantastic Beasts in 5 seconds.
Oh, no, it's amazing. And I love always the credits are amazing for Pixar, but I love the end credits where you actually get a musical of that.
Yeah, a musical, and not only musical, but also like I love when they animate bloopers, and they didn't do it with all the Pixar movies, you know, they did it with the right ones, you know, the ones that were for the most part comedies. So I like the ones, you know, in The Bug's Life, in Toy Story 2, and I think the funniest are in Monsters, Inc.
Oh, totally. Well, like I said about Monsters University, you know, it isn't pandering jokes. The jokes exist in this world, and it's the world itself making fun of itself. You know, there's a lot of itselfs in that sentence, but it's really, really. You know, cleverly done. Everything, the humor, the characters. I mean, even this is still early Pixar. You know, the animation of the fur on Sully is pretty amazing. There's a lot of you know, great animation too, as always.
Yeah, it is. That actually was kind of groundbreaking. You know, with the animated fur and everything. They didn't do anything of that before. And they were still like trying out certain things, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that's about Monsters Inc. It's great how we sync up on that one at least. I think the next one we have to talk about is Finding Nemo, because we did with Toy Story. It's just wow. As that one, it's not my favorite Pixar movie. It's a great Pixar movie. All the characters are memorable. You remember them, you know, they all look different. It's a fantastic story. It's just so great. It's a great character arc. It's funny, it's scary, it's so emotional. I enjoy this movie so much on so many different levels. It also has a fantastic, fantastic musical score. And it just ropes me in from the title, from the point the title comes on screen. I'm just so involved, and I can't help it. It's just, I don't have to say much about that, except that I adore it. I adore it so much, and I find it funny and everything a great movie has to be. Totally
agreed on this one. Not that I have to agree with you, I just happen to. But it's amazing. You know, I like I said, you know, my ranking changes, but my top three. There was a recent film that suddenly shot into the top three, but spoilers. But I said for years that you know, Finding Nemo was one of the greatest animated films ever, you know, and you know, I say one of there, but it's true. I think when Finding Nemo came out, it came out at a time when we hadn't really seen much water in animation, and I think it's easy in hindsight to look back because we've had so much of it in recent animations, and there's so many animations each year now. It's incredible, and I love it. But at the time, that water and all the breathtaking effects inside, it was just amazing, so colourful, and how they accomplished that whole world. Because look, I mean, Toy Story is, yes, it exists in other places, but centrally it's in one room. And same with Monsters Inc., you know, I mean, it's kind of just at a workplace place. A Bug's Life is on a very tiny island, and Finding Nemo is everywhere. You know, it's the whole freaking ocean, and it just broke so much new ground in terms of animation, amazing world building, which is what Pixar does again in spades so well. I think it was so ambitious, and they really pulled it off. I remember being gifted this movie on DVD and just being excited to hold the damn thing, you know. that is such was my excitement for it. It's so good. For me, at least, of the first 5 Pixar movies, it is the best of the 5. And I'm not saying it's my favorite, but I do think it's the best. The story elements too, you know, all the trauma that Marlin suffers, the idea that throughout this whole journey, Marlin will stop at nothing to find his son and ultimately becomes a better father along the way. I mean, that is just great storytelling and a really strong character arc.
And incredibly ballsy, you know, starting your movie off with a family slaughter, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's so, you know, it's so disturbing so early on. I would be surprised if every kid stayed in the theater after that scene. Which is a shame because they missed a great movie. But, you know, it's really, it's wonderful. And also, yeah, I watched it recently again, and I was surprised how great it still looked. You know, when you compare it to Finding Dory, when you look at the underwater scenes, at least, not much has improved. You know, it's just it still looks so great. You know, the only thing that doesn't hold up is, of course, the human characters, because they didn't have the technology back then to really make that realistic in a way. So they still look kind of, you know, kind of weird, but that's just a small portion of the movie. It's just, you know, everything is so memorable about it, and the characters are so much fun, and also the voice acting in both versions is great, and all the little in-jokes they do with certain things. You know, the white shark named Bruce, which was also the nickname for the shark in Jaws.
Right.
And also like what was it? The Shining reference they do with him was very funny. What else? Yeah, I just really enjoy these characters, and the ocean is actually a place I'm pretty afraid of, you know. And there are certain shots in the movie where I get kind of like goosebumps, because feeling, you know, the deepness of a sea is something I always found kind of frightening. And here they show that part, but they also show how beautiful the ocean can be, and I like that, and how diverse it is. It's
because there's a kind of subtext in that, you know. Marlin is so scared for his son, for Nemo, and you know, at the end of the film, he kind of, you know, learns that and stops mollycoddling him and stops being so overprotective. And yes, it is dangerous, but that is life itself. It's a scary world, you know. But there's beauty to be found, you know, even in the smallest of places, and that's true of the characters too. You know, Dory is an amazing character, you know.
A concept that could have failed so easily.
Oh, totally. You know, that classic, maybe Disney, slightly annoying sidekick. You know, you stray a very fine line when designing that, but I think they got it so right. It's interesting to that we were talking about the awards earlier, and it's interesting that this actually won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, and rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm so glad it did. You know, I really can't say enough good things about this one, and I like I said, I really stressed the context of the time. A lot of this stuff was so groundbreaking, and I think at that age I would have said that it was the most beautiful film I ever saw. You know, it's still maybe true, at least top 10. I just enjoy dark, gritty films in my old age, but but no, it's absolutely amazing. I'm glad you enjoy it so much too.
Yeah, it just, how can you not? I think everybody loves this movie in a way. I don't know any. I still have to meet one person who just doesn't care for this one. And something about Dory also, she is not only the sidekick, she quickly becomes one of the main characters, and she also has a big arc in the movie. And also, the funny thing is, doctors actually claim that this is one of the most realistic depictions of short-term memory in movie history.
Yes, yeah.
Which is really great. And yeah, I also love like the ending gag, when they're all in the plastic bags in the ocean and no one. And it's just everything also comes back, every plot line and how they plan to get out. And all the characters are just fun. I find none of them annoying. It's just, on all accounts, this movie succeeds, and it's just an audio visual big emotional adventure, and I just like it so much, and it makes me laugh every time in the right scenes. I love the seagulls, I love the little crabs, I love the sharks, I love the the swarmfish.
Pixar never treats extras as extras. They're there for a reason, even if it's just for a little cheap laugh like that. There's a gag involved. There's a character identity to every single thing you see on screen. I know I went on a bit with A Bug's Life, but it really is extremely difficult for me to review any Pixar film critically because I'm so attached and emotionally invested in the characters, and you have such a connection with these stories, and Finding Nemo is a great example of that. It's also fun for the whole family. If I just catch I could say this about any movie, but if I just catch a glimpse of any one of their movies, but especially Finding Nemo, I am suckered in. I am suddenly sat down, eyes glued to the screen, watching until the credits roll. I'm just in awe.
Yeah, and also, Finding Nemo is a really good catch, huh? Right?
No.
Also, with a Mike cameo in the credits, that's fun.
Yes.
It's great. I think we can just get Finding Dory out of the way with this as well, because they're so closely attached, even though Finding Dory is so recent. And with Finding Dory, it's kind of like the same case like with Monsters University, because when they first announced Finding Dory, where they first showed a picture, hey, Finding Dory, I actually thought it was April Fool's or something. Because I was like, no, they can't be serious. This is a joke. And then they announced, no, it's a real movie. I'm like, okay, you're out of ideas now, officially. Because really, it seemed so idiotic to me that way. Because Finding Nemo is one of those movies also, kind of like Monsters University, where it's just a story on its own, and it really doesn't leave it open to a sequel or a prequel in a way. And with Monsters University, they pulled that off. But with Finding, and I heard like Finding Dory, and I was like, really? No. And so I liked it a lot more than I expected it to be, and I have to be critical about this, because it is kind of like a totally pointless movie, but they avoid it being totally pointless by making it again a very emotional journey that feels essential. You can watch the first Finding Nemo, you can watch Finding Nemo now and actually think about the sequel and not being angry. And you're like, oh yeah, and that's how it continues. And it doesn't bother me, because they tell another story, they tell it in a different environment with new characters, which is a shame, because I really wished the sharks to come back, at least for like one scene. That would be nice. But everything else, it's just, I enjoy the new characters, I enjoy the new story, I enjoy the new adventure, and how very little takes place in the ocean, and they still make it visually interesting. And also, it's kind of weird how it ends with a car chase, but whatever. It's creative. The humor works. I like the characters, and also, yeah, the when she finds her parents again, it made me tear up. It was just so emotional. So that's pretty much, it's kind of like, from the outset, it's the definition of a pointless sequel that really doesn't need to be there. But it is a lot better than it has any right to be. It actually is a pretty good movie, and I enjoyed it a lot. So that's
actually the perfect summary.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. Actually, I don't have to say anything else about it.
No, that's. I think you said that very well. I think the review. I mean, it's. I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it's kind of better than it ought to be, or better than it need be.
better than it has any rights to be.
Better than it has any right. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. That's so true. I this is where I would say, oh, maybe it's a little bit pointless. But then, how can I say that when I enjoy it so much? This is a case where I didn't enjoy it as much as Finding Nemo, of course, because as we've just said, that is such a masterpiece. But I was so emotionally invested, just like Monsters University. I just wanted to live in that world for another 2 hours, and I enjoyed every second. And also, I have to give it credit because it introduced like some of my now favorite characters. And Hank the octopus. It's amazingly drawn and illustrated and animated. It's the little side characters, Gerald the sea lion and Becky the bird, like all the little characters.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Pretty amazing in this one. I couldn't really care for Act 3. That final car chase. It is handled well, but I don't really care for that. And it was interesting to see them not just in the ocean, but outside of it too. And obviously learning about Dory, which, as we mentioned, we love so much. But certainly an absolute blast and a real thrill ride. And again, it's very, very difficult for me to divorce films from their franchise, because, I mean, often I have a Toy Story marathon. I like to group Monsters, Inc. and Monsters University together. I watch the Finding and Cars franchises in one block. So, I don't know. It's almost at a point where it's just real for me.
Yeah.
These characters and stories exist in my mind, and I care about them so much. But not the best, but there's still so much to be enjoyed in it, and I'm glad it's here.
Yeah, totally. Well said. Now let's now let's talk about a movie, and I have to get this out of my system because that's something my parents, especially my mother, and me and my brothers experienced often with Pixar, which they gotten better since a few years, because we had the experience that every, at least the first teaser and also the trailers for their movies sucked.
Oh, they're terrible. Yeah, I agree.
Because, especially with this movie, this was the first movie where I actively saw the teaser in the theater over and over again. And it was just this little sketch scene. And I'm like, oh man, this just looks so unfunny and so unoriginal and everything. And they continued this with Up, and especially WALL-E. I hated that teaser for WALL-E, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this looks terrible. And ironically, the teaser for Merida I loved, and then I was disappointed by the movie. So it's just, and so I took it with a grain of salt, because now I went also the teasers for The Good Dinosaur, I was like, oh, this looks not good. But, it's Pixar, so it might be good. But then it was like, oh, all right, fine, whatever. So it's so... It's really weird with Pixar. And they have gotten better now. They actually have gotten better introducing their concepts and in the teasers now better. And with this one... Yeah, I wasn't looking forward to that at all. I don't know how I actually got around to see it It might have been in the cinema, but I'm not sure. I think it was the cinema. But let's face it, The Incredibles is one of the best superhero movies I personally have seen. It feels like this big throwback, and Brad Bird was the perfect director because he also broke new ground for having directed the first Pixar movie that starred human characters, because before that technology wasn't there, and so they had to do animate objects or bugs or fish or anything. And with this, his approach helped for making them cartoon characters, 3D cartoon characters who looked like they were drawn first in his particular style. That helped it a great deal. I watched this movie recently, not too long ago, with a friend who hadn't seen it before, and she really got into it very quickly. And I still enjoy. I think I enjoy it actually better now because it's actually a pretty adult movie at its core. I like how people die in this. I like how they don't sugarcoat the action. I like how they don't sugarcoat the villains. This is a universe where people die, where big bad supervillains exist. I like how kind of brutal and dark it is, and I love the family. I love the concept, and it put one of our now best contemporary composers on everybody's map. It's just, this is one of the best. This is one of the favorite scores of one of my brothers. He just loves the music. He listens to it over and over again, and I just love it too. It's one of the great superhero soundtracks. It's a great throwback score. It's a great throwback movie. I love the style. I love the references. This movie is just all around great. On an emotional level, it's one of the, it's one of those movies that doesn't really make me cry. I don't get really involved with. I don't get involved emotionally as much. It doesn't have like the biggest emphasis on heart. That's a big emphasis on family. But it's not like there's not a tearjerker scene or anything like that. So on that note, it's one of the it's one of the lesser Pixar movies. But that's that's fine because everything else they just do so perfectly. It's just I love this movie.
I can tell. It's incredible. I mean, what else can we say? I mean, I'm right there with you. It's the best. I never tire of it. I mean, it's the best of everything. Your friend is so right, and you too. It's one of my favorite soundtracks by Michael Giacchino. Arguably one of my favorite Pixar soundtracks, hands down. It's my favorite superhero movie, in fact, and one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. It has the best aesthetics, the best visual style, the best Pixar villain syndrome. I mean, that.
Oh, I love this.
Villain writing at its best. Oh my god.
This villain is so great. He has a great. And actually, it got me because at first, when he shows up as an adult, I didn't recognize him. And then he says, "I am your biggest fan." And then I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
It was awesome. And I love his motivation. I love his plan, It's and how it backfires and how he comes back at the end and gets his comeuppance with a thing they also established early, with a cape. It's so great. It's so, and it also at a certain amount really dark. Now, what you said about the suicide attempt scene, that was something. That was actually.
Did you see A Bug's Life?
That was something.
Exactly.
That was something I didn't take as humorous. That's something I, even as a kid, I took as pretty ballsy, because in an animated movie, in its first 15 minutes, showing a scene like that, I actually liked it because it gave the story weight. It gave this universe a sense of realism. And also introduced a very good concept in a way wow, I think most superheroes actually, I think, have to deal with this at a certain point, but they don't really establish that. I don't think Spider-Man ever saved a suicide guy from jumping or something. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he did. I know Superman did at one point, but.
it's just responsibility for their actions, and that was kind of a big takeaway. I think, I mean, at least in that scene, I mean, maybe that's just my dark sadistic nature that I found it funny, but I mean, the other part of that scene that I really enjoyed, even though we get him for a moment, was my second favorite Pixar villain. Let's not forget Bon Voyage.
Oh, he's so great. This is so fantastic. I really hope he makes a comeback in the sequel. I so hope that would be amazing.
They said they're going to leave right where they're going to continue right where they left off. So
that's awesome. And when I heard about that a few days ago, that's actually really awesome. But I think after that they should make a certain jump in time, because I would like to see the kids more grown up. I would like to see how they live later. I think that would be a great scene for the start, and then maybe they could do like a montage or something. Because I would like to have the movie take place a few years later, because it would be interesting to see the characters grown up and maybe like where the baby is now. And maybe of all the Pixar movies, this one deserved a sequel the most. It made much more sense to make a sequel to that than Finding Nemo or anything. But I think
it ended that way. It asked for it. It kind of
and also
a big question mark at the end of the film. So I think this is the sequel we've all been waiting for. Well, since 2004.
And also it being a superhero movie. But I think the reason why they didn't do it until now, I think they just waited for Brad Bird to come back because he was busy with other movies, and that actually makes me have a lot of respect for Pixar not doing a sequel without him. I actually think that's pretty. I think that was the reason. They were like, "Oh, we would like to make another movie, but he's busy now with Mission Impossible and the other live action movies he wants to do."
He's had an amazing career. Like, he's gone on and done some fantastic live action directing as well. But you're right. It's I respect them too for that. That's very.
I'm one of the few.
They would wait.
I'm one of the few people who enjoys Tomorrowland.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we can't have The Incredibles without Edna. Come on.
Damn it! Come on. But I always forget that he voices her in the original, because that's one of the best German dubbing in Pixar history. They do, because they get great voices for them who really, really fit the characters, and the jokes are also so funny when they do it in the German version. I actually think I didn't ever watch it in English until now. I really have to do that. Maybe
interesting. I mean, I'm very, very mixed, because at least all of the Pixar films that I've seen in Mexico have all been in Spanish, if I've seen them at the cinema. Whatever they deem to be a kids' movie, whether it is or not, usually doesn't receive subtitles in any way. So if I'm watching the Spanish dub, for better or worse.
All right.
Makes everyone aggressive. But yes, it's really, really interesting to just hear the different voice casts in Spanish too, because I mean, some characters, especially in Toy Story, some characters I find better in Spanish, some I find better in English. But it doesn't matter what international version I watch. Every single voice cast seems to be very, very strong, and nowhere more so than this one. And the first, I mean, yes, we had Boo and some humans, but really the first Pixar film in a human world, and they really pulled it off, and obviously that came with a lot of challenges, but there's so much in here, the soundtrack, the art, the style, the sound design. The sound design as well. It's
actually got an Oscar, I think. They got an Oscar for the sound department somewhere in this movie.
Should do. But the world building, it's building a history again, it's building a culture, and it's social commentary at its height as well. I mean, there's a lot there. It's I mean, to speak to the characterization, it takes a super, super strong character via way of Mr. Incredible and puts him in a position where he can't use his powers. He's at an insurance agency, when we see him at the start of the film. The status quo is broken, and it touches on such big, big topics, that whole thing of everyone's special. When everyone's special, no one is. You know, it's really, really interesting, and it's at its core, it's essentially about family, and it's for the family. It's as enjoyable for adults of all ages as it is for children. So,
and also, as an adult, you pick some stuff up you don't get as a kid. So in the beginning, where they introduce them with the interview sections, I'm sitting there nowadays, I'm like, is that a reference to Watchmen? You know, in a way, because, you know, the Watchmen comic, because the movie wasn't out at that time, but, you know, it's kind of, it attempts this sense of realism and world building that Watchmen also did, you know, with the certain people, you know, revealing who they were, etc. It was actually, you know, it was actually pretty interesting seeing it that way. And what was it again with a villain or something? I don't remember my point, but yeah, it's just it has also like some of the best jokes, and I like how they have all the different powers and they establish them also very organically. You know, you can see how they do it and how they have to use it and how they have to hide it. And yeah, it's just all around a very, very fun movie, and I can't wait when I have kids on my own someday in the future to show them this movie for the very first time, because I think it would be a great fun. It's just everything you want to have in a movie. It's the only thing, you know. It's just not as emotional. There's not a big tear scene, but that's fine, and. Yeah, I think we made all of our points. It's just an all around great, really good movie.
It was just, if I can say that, you know, I mean, maybe they've had more, and I'm sure they will continue to. But the first real big peak of Pixar, you know, you got Toy Story, boom, Monsters Inc., boom, Finding Nemo, boom, and then The Incredibles. You know, it just kept, at this time they just kept getting better and better and better, and hit after hit after hit, and constant success. And I probably haven't been more excited for a sequel than this one.
Yeah,
ever.
So,
you know, outside of Star Wars, I'm
so looking forward to it. So looking forward to it. That could be one of the greats again. Yes. Next Brad Bird movie on our list, Ratatouille. That's actually, without a doubt, that's one of my favorites. I love this one so much. It has also like in terms of, maybe that's a theme with Brad Bird. Also in terms of the emotion, it doesn't have that big of a tear scene at the end. You know, it's not that heavy on that level of emotion, but it's just, I love the concept. I love the characters. I love how realistic the kitchen is and how they do it. I love how they get around of a rat cooking, you know. The Red family is great. The characters in the kitchen are great. France looks just amazing, and the film makes me hungry every time. It's so well done with the food stuff. Also, one of the best Giacchino scores. One of my favorite scores of all time, actually.
Oh, fantastic!
It's so, and one of the best villain characters also Pixar has ever had, because he's not really a villain. How he turns around is so well done. That's actually the big emotional scene, I think, how he changes. And his monologue, you know, being a critic myself, it's just the truth, he says. It's such a great, I think it's one of the best monologues in any movie, because it's a pure truth, and it's from a critic standpoint, they really nail it with that one. And also the ending, you know, how it's kind of bittersweet, how it's not an all-around happy ending. It's just, that's one I can't say much about, except for, that's actually one of my favorites. In all accounts, I really, really love this one. It's just everything a very, very great movie has to have. And it's also like just a great movie for adults, because there are great little jokes. only they would get how he's like, I have a very little tiny, and she looks at him and this. It's so funny. Yeah, I'm gushing all of this. I can't help it. It's just.
Yeah, no, it's really, really nice to see, to kind of see the humans and animals working together in this story.
I love it.
It's not a problem. They don't really. When I'm watching the film again, I'm just watching characters. I'm not even thinking too much, a rat in the kitchen. I think the fact that it does that speaks in volumes to the story, because, my wife flat out refuses to watch this one because she has such a phobia of rats. But I feel like if I could, eventually twist her arm and get her down to watch this, she would feel the same way as I. It's... You just forget about that. Okay, maybe in the first few scenes you're thinking about that, but it's just so good, and it's kind of, I don't know, Hollywood doing Europe right.
Yeah, they just look so cute. The rats look so cute.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing creatures, and yeah, I agree with you. From the critic standpoint, like, this film is really for the writers. This is a writer's film. You can tell that the critics latched onto that story element because they lapped it up as well. They loved it. So, rightly so. Because, like I said, my wife just can't bring herself to watch this film. This is actually one that I haven't seen for a while. Of course, after this chat, it's the first thing I'm going to do. But, I was very, very... again, kind of pleasantly surprised. I think by this point, or certainly by Finding Nemo and The Incredibles, I was just sold on anything Pixar. I was like, a rat in a kitchen? Yeah, I'm sure they'll do a great film.
Same here.
I just had so much faith, and still do, in what Pixar does. They always bring something entertaining and just, again, a near perfect film. And it's really, really amazing soundtrack that's perhaps not talked about enough. It's not forgotten about, for sure, but obviously with Incredibles it doesn't get as much limelight. So,
you're so right. You're totally right about that.
But yeah, Giacchino, when Giacchino does Pixar, he's on top form.
He's on fire. He's just on fire.
Seriously.
It's just, I love it so much. And also a little funny gag in the German version. One of the cooks, the one who always tells a different story, how he got to prison, the guy who's like, I killed someone with this fun. In the German version, he's voiced by a famous German TV cook. So that made it extra funny when you recognized his voice. It's just a little role, but it actually was funny how they got this celebrity to voice this character. And yeah, it's just a great look. It's a great looking movie. It's a great sounding movie. It has all around. It just has everything I want from a funny movie. They get the characters right, and it's one of the best looking movies. Just the warm colors they use and the great character designs, who also look like 3D cartoon characters, and they don't look in any way like Uncanny Valley or something. It's just it's such a pleasant film all around. And it also very, very creative and in a way pretty original. It's one of the more original.
This is one of the most original stories.
Yeah, that's something that's I can't really think of some concept they borrowed from, unlike Monsters Inc. or maybe like Toy Story or something. This is actually one of the more original ones, and it's all around. I adore it. I love it so much. So I think
and I think it paved the way. Well, obviously they had Cars the year before, but I think it paved the way for really to get the ball rolling, because aside from, 2014, they have released one, if not two movies every year since this time. So, I think by this point, like I said before, and arguably even with The Incredibles, everyone was just so invested in Pixar as a studio, because there's so many animation studios out there that really took a long time to get their name, whereas Pixar almost has brand loyalty at this point. I mean, people people won't say a bad thing about it. People just live and breathe these movies, and I include myself in that. But it's just such a good film, and even if you are a bit squeamish with rats in the kitchen, leave that at the door.
Yeah, and they address it. They address it in the movie, and they do fun things with it. And I love the concept how the ghost of Gusteau actually kind of haunts him, and that's a great way to get in the mind of a character. It's just really fun and just awesome. Which brings us to our next movie, one of in my opinion, one of the worst marketed movies, because it turned me totally off. And I watched it in the cinema in the very town I'm in right now. So I actually have very distinct memories watching this one in the cinema. This is also one of my... This is not only one of my favorite Pixar movies and one of my favorite movies of all time. This is actually my favorite love story ever.
Oh, I have to agree with you there. Yeah.
I remember sitting in the theater and being very, very just involved into the first third or something, because there's almost no dialogue, and it's so visual, and it's so this version of Earth, which was kind of scary but also kind of creative and beautiful in its way, with all the junk lying around, and then the new robot coming, and then also I remember when we first are in the Axiom, and we see all the now fat people, and we see this big thing where all the brands are advertised, and we see the first time this big place with all the hoverboards floating around. I actually remember my jaw dropping and I'm not comprehending how creative and how unbelievable this was. And this was a concept that was totally new to me. I remember being just enchanted in the cinema, and really, and at the end also kind of crying. And it's some people like the first half better than the second half. I just like all of it. All of it is really, really great, even though the second part is a little less original. It's all of it. Also, it's one of the few times where a 2001 parody actually worked, because I'm getting so sick of that in modern media. I'm getting sick of the Zarathustra melody every time they do a space joke. I'm getting sick of all the 2001 references. And this one, they got it right. They really worked it into the plot, and I found it very, very creative and fitting. And I love this couple. I love Wally and Eve so much, and how they tell it visually with little dialogue. They're dancing in space, dancing with the stars or something. That sequence, it's just one of the most beautiful things ever, and also one of the best Thomas Newman scores of all time.
Oh, we're totally agreed. Yeah, it's so good, and this works on so many levels for you, for me, for everyone out there. It deals with so much. I mean, I am a huge lover of science fiction, no question. It certainly touches on those elements, or at least it's in that setting, a science fiction setting, space. But it's coming down to character. There's there isn't an ensemble cast in this film. This is, coming off the back of Cars and Ratatouille, and certainly this one and the next film, Up, we're dealing with a very, very small cast of characters here, and yet they're some of the greatest films. It's just,
it really is.
I praise it so highly because they really had their work cut out. It was no easy task. There's not much dialogue. There's essentially one primary character for the first 15 minutes. That's it. There's only Wally and a bug. So to give such feeling to two characters that are so mechanical and without any dialogue, very little. I think it's amazing, and there's so much complexity and layering to their relationship, despite its apparent simplicity at first. Because one builds via Wally, and one destroys. And
that's something, that's a little gripe I have about this movie, because I find it kind of weird how she is there to explore everything and to search for life, and every time she encounters a noise, she just blows it up. It's weird. It's kind of weird that way, that seems like a huge design flaw. But everything else, I love how they work in Hello Dolly. That's the other thing I find kind of weird from a technical standpoint, how they first in the news feeds and everything, they show the humans as real humans, but they are cartoon humans in the movie. That's something I find
I
weird.
find that quite jarring. I always forget about that, and every time I see it, I remind myself.
I do too.
To me, it's almost like excuse me, it's almost like a zoo animal, looking back at you through the cage. It's kind of taking that perspective and shifting it. So while we're looking at a 2D picture on screen, well, guess what? When they watch television, they see us.
In Happy Feet, they actually kept it consistent, I think. They actually showed only real humans, which made it all the more effective. In that regard. In this one, I get it. They can't do it all the time because the humans are a big part of the movie. But they could have. I don't know. Maybe it's like some kind of like meta thing we don't quite understand. Maybe it was actually intentional to fool us, and also to make the Earth, this version of Earth, the much more realistic, and maybe also we see it through the eyes of Wally. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe there are some more layers to it we don't fully understand. But I think they thought something. They thought about this concept. I don't think it was like unintentional in a way. I think they made it with a thought in mind we just didn't comprehend yet. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
maybe so.
What was there was something else with a movie. Damn it! Something that came to my mind. I liked, actually for a kids movie, it's one of the more complex ones. There are a lot of ideas and a lot of concepts that aren't quite comprehensible for little kids. It is a complex movie with many themes. And they can get the gist of it, but not all of it. It's a very, very... It's a movie with many layers, like an onion. I go back to Shrek again. No, whatever. It's actually, I like how complex it is, and yet how wonderfully simple at its core. That's something that many great movies do very well.
Yeah, many great Pixar movies. I think it's... Again, a real social commentary. It's tackling humanity and the problems we're facing today and for the last decade, oversaturation, consumption, the environment on a global scale. I think this is a film that you would, be on a desert island about to be submerged underwater and quickly rescue from the case to be archived in the annals of human history. I think it should be, it should sit proud in a museum almost, a commentary, a love letter, a journal on life as we see it and where it's going at this moment. And yes, it takes place, I think it's 700 years in the future, and it's so cool just to see the humans at this point. We've never really seen humans at this point in our future, maybe outside of Doctor Who, but it's so fascinating and almost, I would certainly say believable, just this idea that
it totally is.
Technology gets so advanced and they just say, okay, well, we'll just please humans 24/7, what human wouldn't wish their life to be made easier? It's certainly getting that way, and it's definitely an extreme example, but it touches on so many things, but without being preachy about it. And I think it would be very easy for a film of this story, especially in a live action universe, for this story to get a little preachy, and I think they handle it so well. There's just enough for kids. There's just enough for the people who don't want to delve into all those layers. There's just enough for the science fiction fans. There's just enough for people who enjoy the characterizations of Pixar. And it's just nice to see Pixar animate a lot of machines and have them interact with each other. It's not just animals and toys and humans and circles. We're dealing with squares and metal and
giving them characters also. Like even with the machines, he has a very, very short encounter with he influences, like the little machine who just points at stuff, and he waves at it, and then the machine mimics it. It's just fantastic. It's so great how that theme goes through the whole movie. Also, like the running gag with the cleaning robot, and how the broken robots help him. It's just, there's a lot of stuff to like, and it's just a great ending, and with a great little joke at the end. Where you see all the plans there, not far away, and how they just do it all over again. It's just the end credits tell their own story, also with this brilliant, wonderful song. It's just
it kind of continues the story a little bit.
I like end credits who do that in an organic way. And
I like that song. I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan as well.
It was such a great song. It's one of my favorite film songs. All around. It's
strange because to escape into a fantasy world, especially as well fleshed out as this one, it's interesting that it fascinates us all so much when it's essentially about us. It's a reflection, it's a mirror of humanity, and that it's a problem that is encountered a lot in Star Trek. Why do all the characters have this obsession with the 21st century? It's obsessed, and then 20th century obsessed with baseball and cars and things like this. But Wally kind of explains that, because I guess it kind of ends at that moment. It ends in our moment of time, and that's why Wally collects all these Rubik's cubes and all his little compartments and all the films he puts. Even for the humans, it's kind of fascinating to see a human say in a film, define Earth, define sea,
it's
define
a great
dancing,
scene. It's wonderful. And how he developed a personality, and how he actually got used to his environment, and also works pretty cleverly with everything. How he takes something from now dead robot and uses it on its own. There's so much realism in it, and also like how the running gag, how the bug just lives through everything. How it's like undefeatable. That's really funny, because I think it's supposed to be a roach type thing, and that just makes actually a pretty neat sense.
Yeah, and perhaps one of the most indestructible characters in Pixar. Like, can that thing possibly die at all?
No.
Not that I want it to, but it survives all these spaceship blasts and Wally constantly using his tracks over it and things. It's just
and also that
little thing survives.
Also, they're kind of subtle about it. How I don't know if he actually knew this bug for a long time, or if he first sees it at the beginning of a movie. That's actually something I wasn't quite sure about. And I think that's actually pretty cleverly done. But yeah, to end it about WALL-E, it's just it's all around. I really really love this, and it is one of my favorites. I actually can't do a top 3 Pixar favorites, maybe like a top 5, and this is definitely high up in the top 5. And also same for me. It really varies. You know, it depends on in what mood I am to watch a certain movie.
Actually, usually it depends on what movie I last saw.
Yeah, also, yeah, because...
I watched WALL-E last night because I hadn't seen it for a while. And
that's great.
Surprise, surprise, it's number 1 in my head right at this moment.
That's awesome.
Ask me again after tonight. Absolutely amazing. Not just a great Pixar film, it's just a great film.
Yeah. So, let's get away from WALL-E and let's get to Up. Short title, very simple title, says everything and nothing at the same time. And also I can sum up this movie in just one word. Brilliance.
Yes.
This is just an all-around brilliant movie. I can't say much more about it. It is one of the more emotional ones. It's one of the more realistic ones, actually, and one of the more creative ones. It's everybody talks about that montage scene at the beginning and how well it tells the story with just visuals and music. You just can't help it. It is, for itself, it's like a brilliant 3-minute short film, you know? You could slap the end at the end of that one and you would be satisfied with it as a short film. But all the rest of it, it's so creative. It's so funny. It's great how his childhood hero comes back at the end to be the villain, and also how dark, how kind of dark it gets at the end. I love the ending. I love the imagery. I tear up every time, at least at like 3 points in the movie. It's one of my biggest favorites. It's one of the best animated movies ever made. It takes advantage of everything. I can't say much about it. It's brilliant music, brilliant characters, brilliant idea. Not entirely original as far as I know, but just it's in every term of it's in every meaning of the word. It's just brilliant and wonderful.
Yeah, exactly, and every synonym in between. It's it's incredible. I mean, and arguably one of the most powerful starts to a film ever. I mean, Pixar just punched us in the feels straight away.
Unbelievable.
Such an emotional backstory in the opening 10 minutes. You can't. I know it's something that's talked about a lot, but rightly so. I mean, you can't. How can they create these characters that we've only just seen, that we've only just encountered, and have me reaching for the tissue box so soon?
Because it's so realistic. It's just so realistic. It's so well told, and any other movie probably would have told half the story with them as kid characters or something. Who knows? But here, if they introduce them in the first 3 minutes, and then they tell for the next 3 minutes their whole life, and you have all the feelings for it, and it's so incredibly realistic in a way. He flies away with his house, but it's just so they explain it so well, and they get the best counter character for him to bounce off of. And the concept of the speaking dogs, it's so funny and so creative, and it makes so much sense in this universe. It's just great that this thing kind of translates the thoughts of the dogs, and awesome how they play with it, and this scary looking dog has this high-pitched squeaky voice, and just it's such a simple kind of stupid joke, but it works so well. It's just amazing. And the only thing I'm kind of wondering about, which is a little plot hole nitpick, how his childhood idol is still alive at this point. It's kind of weird. You could say like maybe like it's like a Captain Ahab thing. How his search keeps him alive. But I actually thought about it. Maybe it's just the great air in that area. Maybe it's just so.
Well, I can certainly attest to that. The air in the Americas is much better than rainy, grimy England. Yes.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe it was bad.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The central idea, the adventure is out there, and that's what Pixar is all about. It's whether we all get to go on our own great big adventures in life is neither here or there. We all want to. We're all curious. We're all travelers at heart. It's a very human thing, and I feel with Up that it's that backstory aside. I mean, this is. The central character is a stubborn, grumpy old man.
It's so unconventional. It's so you have never seen.
Follow him across the globe, and it's so surreal. Balloons on a house. I mean,
You've never seen a hero like this in an animated movie.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. It really is, and yes, the animation. Everyone working on this film did such a good job, but I have to give huge props to Giacchino on this one as well. This is one of my favorite Pixar scores and one of my favorite scores by him. In a year where he also wrote another score to the Star Trek film. In that score, he made me cry in the first 5 minutes too. So we almost have got through a lot of tissues in 2009 because the emotions that we go through is just incredible, and this is a real couples film. This is a film that I can watch with my wife and not feel ashamed about crying over.
This is a film you can watch with anybody. That's so great.
Yeah, no, totally.
To go on a quick sideline about Giacchino, he's. I have a score reviewing site, a German blog where I talk about scores and everything, and I have reviewed already a couple of his more recent works because it's a blog that's not too old, and I always find it amazing how he's one of the busiest composers working today. He scores everything now, and how he always has a very high quality about it, and also how he is. He does different things, but he is so recognizable, it's so distinct. You hear just a couple of phrases or notes and you can easily identify him, no matter if it is like Jupiter Ascending or Up or Ratatouille or like one of the Star Trek movies, or even like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, or like the recent Spider-Man Homecoming. It's just he is so recognizable and he has this distinct style. And also, which is really important, he's one of a few composers working today who is unashamedly emotional in every way, who doesn't shy away from the music wearing its heart on its sleeve. It's just so blatant in this, in a great way. It's not ashamed. It's just, where a lot of scores now tend to be a little too minimalistic and a little too anonymous and kind of sound like each other. He just has such a great voice who is not afraid to show its emotion. And that's one thing that makes him one of my favorite composers working today. Because he gets it. He gets it like pretty much no one else nowadays, except for like whenever John Williams scores a movie now.
Yeah, no, that's why he's the perfect fit for Pixar. It's so good. I mean, I love a lot of what Giacchino does and always have, but it's in more, just taking a quick glimpse of the ones that shine out to me. It is the Pixar scores that I keep coming back to. He does such a good job. He does have such a good handle on everything. And even with, if you just take The Incredibles just as one example, like immediately he's still one of the best composers working for Pixar. It's just incredible what he can do and keeps bringing awesome scores to the table. The man never stops. The man never sleeps.
like this year, how many scores does he write this year? You know, he has like Book of Henry. He has War for the Planet of the Apes. He has Amazing Spider-Man. He has something else. I can't even think of it. And it's also what I found pretty funny, and this is in terms of like Pixar versus DreamWorks, because for a long time, because DreamWorks from the beginning was for the guys from Hans Zimmer and everything. You know, it was a remote control thing from the beginning. You know, from Ants through How to Train Your Dragon to everything. It was either scored by Zimmer or one of his prodigies, and Pixar had 3 composers of choice. Now they began with Randy Newman, then they got Thomas Newman, and then Michael Giacchino for a few projects. And I thought, all right, they are settled on one of those 3 composers. And then they changed it for Merida, and they got a new composer, Patrick Doyle, for that, for Brave. And in the same year, DreamWorks also changed it up. In that exact same year, there was a DreamWorks score that wasn't, for the first time, that wasn't composed by a Hans Zimmer prodigy. It was scored by Alexandre Desplat, Rise of the Guardians, which I thought was actually a pretty nice coincidence. Or maybe it wasn't a coincidence, but I found that very, very funny when I figured that out.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, I mean, like you say, I mean, since Patrick Doyle, you know, they've kind of adventured a little bit out there, to borrow their quote. I mean, yes, Patrick Doyle, obviously Michael and Jeff Dana on The Good Dinosaur, but yeah, they've still stuck to this core team of, of Randy Newman, Thomas Newman, and Michael Giacchino. You know, I mean, I think Giacchino's, up to this point, he's done 5 scores, but Randy Newman's done 8, you know, and I think that, you know, he rubs some people the wrong way for whatever reason. They just don't like his style. But his songs aside, like his scores for Toy Story, for Monsters, even for Cars, you know, they're incredible scores. They're really, really good, and there's a lot there to love and even learn as an orchestrator. I feel like he's so underappreciated, but to me, I don't know. He dare I say it, but he might even be in my top 3 favorite composers, hands down, just because of the work he's done on Pixar.
My favorite score of his is probably not a Pixar movie, but my favorite score of his is probably Maverick. I like that score a lot.
Great score. Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun. A lot of fun how it revels in the Western cliches. It's just great. Yeah, but I think, when we gush any more about Up, you know, we might lose our minds, because it's just every definition of the word brilliant. And we come to the final movie on our list, because we talked about everything else. Inside Out, which I can guess what your thoughts on it are. This was my...
Yeah, it's dreadful. I hate it. No.
I want to tear it apart inside out. This actually was my favorite movie of 2015. That was one of the few times I came out of the cinema and was on this like great film high, you know, where you feel like you just had one of the best trips ever, and you have this big dumb grin on your face on your way out of the theater. That was this one for me. I loved this one so much. It's one of the best Pixar movies ever. Also, like, the concept itself, not entirely original, but also like so cleverly done. And I just watched it recently, a few days ago, because the fiance of my brother hadn't seen it yet. And so we showed it to her, and she really, really liked it. And also I, again, cried at a certain point. I think you can guess which one. It's I cry every time. It's so, and also when I watched the movie a second time, it was with my mom, and she looked over to me when she gets out of a big dark pit, and then she looks back, and he's like, fly with her to the moon, and so and all that stuff, and I'm sitting there like, and I have tears in my eyes, and my mother looks to me and says, Lasse, it's just a movie. And I'm like, I can't help it. It's just so sad. It's so... Damn it. That movie, it gives me all the feels. Yeah, for the right... It's such an emotional movie, and it's about emotions. I mean, how much more corny can you get? And it hits all the right notes. And it's so creative, and it's so imaginative. My favorite part is when we go through to the Dream Studios, because that's just awesome. And one of the biggest laughs is actually the creepy clown for me, because it's so over the top, and it's so blatant, when he's like, who is the birthday kid? And it's so...
That's a good approximation of his voice. Did you do the voice?
I just watched it, and actually I'm doing the German voice, so I guess they translated it pretty well. Yeah, it just...
Clearly, yeah.
Thank you. I loved it just so much. I love the concept so much, and it's how fear is just shocked, and he wakes her up. It's just...
Oh, it's just so incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting the way we have done this, and the last film we talked about was Up, because that was the last film that this director, Pete Docter, directed before this film. Again, the guy behind the guy who directed Monsters Inc. too. I mean, this when I came out of seeing this film shot straight to the top 3 of my Pixar list. And in fact, I would say, top 2, I think the ones that haven't changed, they're going to be very hard to beat. Incredibles number 1 and Inside Out number 2, and even that is subject to debate. Like the emotions in my mind are forever changing those around. But we talked about how original Ratatouille was. I mean, if that's original, then this is something else. This is originality at its height. This is, again, I would argue, after The Incredibles, the second peak of Pixar. This is just something... the thing is, even with the trailers and the teasers and what little I knew about it going into it, I didn't really know what to expect, or at the very least, I didn't know how they would execute it. But yeah, after seeing it, I just looked around at my wife and, through tears in our eyes, we were just like, wow, that was one of the best films again that we've ever seen. It's so good.
Here in Germany, the marketing was just insane. You couldn't escape it. It's so much that even the characters, before other movies, they they redubbed it, so it sounded like they were talking about, hey, have you gotten your popcorn yet, and stuff like that. So you couldn't escape it, and I quickly got a grasp of the concept, but not really. They were clever of not showing the plot, because the plot itself is something that some Pixar movies actually do, and it's getting kind of old now, because The Good Dinosaur actually did the same thing. 2 characters who don't get along well with each other get lost and have to find their way back home. It's also something like Finding Nemo does. Up kind of does it in a way, but also especially The Good Dinosaur and Inside Out, it has the same concept in that way, and it was really glad that the trailer didn't say that, because I would have been fine with just spending the whole time in that with the 5 of them getting along and doing what they can, but adding this big existential conflict and them trying to find their way back home. It of course manages to be much more emotional, much more visually interesting, and that's actually the perfect way. Even though I discovered a little plot hole in this, because pretty early on they run into these characters who are able to send this earworm back into the head, the certain memories, and so I'm why didn't they approach them to send the core memories back up if that seems to be so easy? So that's a little nitpick, but these characters leave the frame so quickly that maybe they didn't come to that conclusion so early. Who knows? But that's just a little nitpick. That's a little plot hole, but whatever. Every movie has something to rant about in that case, but. There is a movie, and even as imaginative and as clever as this movie is, there are even some things I don't quite understand. Like to this day, like when they get into this weird tunnel where they change shape, and then abstract thinking or something. That was too high for me. I didn't get that one at all the first time I saw it. It was like a bunch of weird stuff happening, and I'm like, what? But that's way too complex for a kids' movie, and I liked it. But still, to this day, I don't quite grasp it. But I know it's interesting, and I know it's clever. But I'm not sure how much.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's speaking as someone who's lived in the Americas for the last few years and kind of escaped the European mindset. Yeah, I definitely just go with things now. my serious English, rational, always critical and analytical and everything side of me has kind of fallen to the wayside, and with age has come a lot of patience and just a kind of carefree attitude. But yes, there's definitely things that I question inside, but. It's such a solid story presented so well in such an imaginative way. I can't say enough good things about this one, and I really would urge anyone who hasn't yet seen it, please, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's incredible.
First thing you do after listening to this, because it's an incredible film. It's not just an incredible animation or an incredible Pixar film. It is just an incredible film,
and also someone I want a sequel to. That's right for a sequel. A few years later, when she's a teenager, what are they gonna do now? Are there maybe new emotions? Because I know they rewrote the script pretty early on. There were supposed to be other characters in her head. They
certainly a lot to explore. Yeah.
Because they figured it was too much. There were at least like 2 or 3 other characters supposed to be in it. 1 or 3, 2 or 3 more emotions, and they changed it to those 5, which I think is a good thing because those are quite enough. But yeah, it's I would like to see how it goes on from there, because it would be actually pretty fascinating. And also, like, when you get a glimpse in the head of the other ones, which is interesting how she seems to be the only one who has mixed gender characters in her head, because the other ones seem to have either like just boys or just girls, depending on their own gender, which I found pretty interesting. Which I was like, there's maybe also a more complex idea hidden there, but who knows? Maybe it's just they wanted to change it up a bit, and they thought, for the other ones, we don't really have to do that. But that seems too uncreative for me. I think they actually thought about something with that concept. Who knows? Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past Pixar. They're clever folks. I think they probably left a little. They left some space maybe to explore in future, and maybe not to be too short-sighted about the future. I think the possibility for a sequel for this one too is very strong. Maybe not the next 10 years, but how long will Pixar be around? 50 years, 100 years, past our lifetimes?
It seems like they've been around forever now.
So who knows? But that is certainly something that could be explored. But I really didn't expect a film to shoot that high up on my forever changing list of Pixar films. But
after a few years
this is a favorite for sure.
After a few years of just lulls, of things that weren't as good as other ones, since Up, there wasn't a movie from Pixar that I just flat out loved. Toy Story 3 was maybe like the best of those, and I wasn't. The Monsters University was fine, but everything else I was just kind of disappointed by, even though Cars 2 was kind of like a positive surprise because I expected nothing. But in hindsight, it's not a very good movie. So it's actually great to have finally. I was like, yeah, Pixar is back now, and now when they do one of these movies of that quality every few years, I can forgive them kind of uninspired stuff like The Good Dinosaur or even like Cars 3. I can forgive that because those movies make enough money for them to do the great movies, and as long as it stays that way, I'm good.
Yeah, no, totally. Actually, I mean, I was just looking at the list just then, and I'm kind of worried now because I'm looking at the Pixar filmography, and for me, it's kind of been too good, too bad, or too good and too kind of okay films. I mean, from we had Up and Toy Story 3, great, love them. Then we had Cars 2 and Brave. Then we had Monsters University, which, as you know, I loved, and then Inside Out, great. Then we had The Good Dinosaur and Finding Dory. I'm back to... And I'll tell you why it worries me was, yes, like I said, I did really enjoy Cars 3. I thought it was, very mature storytelling. And I'm pretty guaranteed that I will love Coco. Because
I'm so looking forward to that one. I'm really looking forward to that one also. But it's weird. A few years ago, wasn't there another movie that did kind of like the same thing? Wasn't it called like The Book of Life, produced by Guillermo del Toro? Because I found it weird when I saw the trailer first for Coco. I think it was in the cinema. Maybe like when we saw Beauty and the Beast or something, the remake, and they had a trailer for Coco, and I was sitting there like, wait a minute, they already did a movie like this a few years ago, and I leaned over to my mom and told her, and she was like, oh, really? Because that one didn't come here to cinemas in Germany. I think it went straight to DVD, and I haven't seen it yet. I heard it was pretty good, actually. I was curious about it, but I didn't get a chance to see it yet. So
a beautiful, colorful world. Yeah, I mean, actually, it was the very first movie I saw when I came to live here in Mexico. So, yeah, I mean, of course, why not? See it in Spanish. It's set here, but yeah. It's interesting. I see that a lot online, and it's kind of like Ants and A Bug's Life. I think there's some kind of feud between DreamWorks and Pixar over those two films. Maybe the Ants idea was possibly stolen at some point. So, and I think it's quite trendy and fashionable. To say these things online, because I remember when the Hunger Games came out, and all I ever saw in the YouTube comments, which isn't a great place to find thought or logic, but
tell me about it.
At least not always, but yeah, the first thing I would always see is people would write Battle Royale, as if they were so clever to notice the similarity between, oh look, this film is like this film, already seen it. It's like, well, so what? Which is kind of how I feel about this one, because maybe, yes, it is very similar. It touches on very similar material for the rest of the world, but honestly, that's just daily life here in Mexico. Yes, we don't have skeletons walking around except on Day of the Dead, but it's just nice to see different interpretations in the same way as we would see many, many interpretations of American life over the years. So,
yeah, totally.
I'm looking forward to it.
And considering that, A Book of Life, it didn't come out here in cinema, but this one, dealing with kind of the same topic, but being from Pixar, now Germany has a much bigger chance learning about that culture that really wasn't depicted much in international films. So it opens up a whole new world for a lot of people here, I think, which is which might be very, very interesting. I think the plot, it remembers me vaguely of like the concept of, Corpse Bride, in a way, but as little as I've seen of it in the teaser. but I'm sure it will be, you know, I'm really, really interested in that. It looks like something, you know, it looks like something different. I'm always open for stuff like that. And also what you just said about people comparing movies, you know, the same YouTube commenters who would say, this is a rip, you know, Hunger Games, a rip-off of Battle Royale and everything. The same people would later comment, why can't we get more original movies like back in the day, you know, like Star Wars? and I'm like, guys, please do your research, people.
Well, the funny thing is, and it's something that's not often talked about. I mean, it's certainly out there, but I think we have to remember that this constant search. Oh, let me just wait for that really loud helicopter to disappear.
I can hear it. Actually,
hopefully, I'm not being swatted.
How dare you talking about Pixar?
Yeah. So. At least for, you know, the current you know, opinion, you know, there is this kind of almost obsession, this constant clamoring by fans, this constant quest for originality all the time. I mean, it's a very recent thing in human history that has happened. I mean, we forget, you know, back in the times of cave paintings on walls and telling stories over the campfire, like, basically, people were just looking for the retelling of a story with new characters. You know, they weren't necessarily looking for that constant, you know, quest for originality. So I see what people mean. You know, it's important that you try and tread new ground and do different things. But you know what? Even if it is a reboot or a rehash or you know, for example, Disney at the moment doing all these live action versions, if it's good, I'm watching it.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I think that kind of constant quest for originality has been something that's certainly been bugging me over the last few years. It's like, well, why? You know, I mean, it's you know, but look, I get it, and obviously, yes, we're going to get The Incredibles 2, which we're both really looking forward to, and I'm sure everyone out there is, and Toy Story 4 to a lesser extent. But you know, when Pixar does original stories, as we've seen with Inside Out, we know we have something special to look forward to, and maybe it's not every year, but I have patience. I can wait a few years.
Yeah, you know, I get both points to quickly go over that, because.
Yeah.
Now we live in a world of franchises now, because Marvel is just so big and so successful, and this goes on since 2008, and now everybody wants to be as successful as Marvel with a shared universe, so much so that movies do it now with things that weren't really supposed to be like that. They're doing like now a Conjuring cinematic universe, you know, with all these spin-off movies going from that horror movie, and also like they're trying this with the Universal monsters. You know, the first one was supposed to be the Mummy, so much so that they even have a Dark Universe logo with an own Danny Elfman title theme in front of it. So it's everybody now wants to be like something else because that is successful, and think that is what a lot of people are bothered by. Because yeah, we always had, you know, unoriginal things and everything, and just, you know, rehashes and things being inspired by something. And nowadays even people are glad when a sequel to something more original comes out, or they do more original things with, or it's something based on something that hasn't been adapted before comes out. You know how Kingsman was really big surprise, even though it was based on a comic book, but it was just something fresh for, you know, something we needed. You know, this hardcore Roger Moore Bond movie we all needed to happen. And also like Mad Max Fury Road, you know, bringing back, you know, the hardcore awesome action that was really kind of gone for a while. And if it was based on an old franchise, but it was just something. It did other things with it, you know, and it brought back visual storytelling to cinema, which was also pretty rare nowadays, where all the action superhero movies really feel the need to explain everything instead of just showing it. Even the Marvel movies have that fault sometimes, even though a lot of those are pretty good. I think that's the point, you know. And you are right. As long as the movie is good, I don't really care, even though if something is a rip-off or something. And the reason why all these Disney remakes come out now is because John Carter and The Lone Ranger were such big bombs at the box office. When those movies would have been, if those movies were successes, I doubt we would have these Disney remakes now, because they lost so much money that they needed a safe bet. And those remakes, for some reason, I don't know why, they make a lot of money. And I actually thought The Jungle Book worked very, very well. I liked that one a lot.
Oh, Jungle Book was amazing.
I
cried in the Jungle Book just with the music.
I didn't like Beauty and the Beast at all, you know, because that's the original is one of my favorite, maybe the most perfect Disney musical ever for me. So it's hard, you know, it's hard to come it's hard to look past that, and seeing this movie who thinks it can do it better than the first animated movie who got nominated for Best Picture. I'm like, come on, guys. So I did like that movie for several big reasons, even though there were some things I kind of enjoyed about it, but whatever. I didn't think it was a good movie. And I don't know what comes next with these. I know that Tim Burton has just started with Dumbo.
There's some interesting choices.
They're doing something different. It doesn't sound at all like the original story, which I'm really excited about. So I think it's going to be like, you know, Pete's Dragon, which wasn't really a remake of the original. It was the basic concept with a different spin on it, and that
was really good. Cracking score to that one.
I own the score as well, and that's something, you know, when they do it like that, and you know, with this unique Tim Burton spin on it, maybe that could be something cool. Because I'm not a huge fan of the original Dumbo. I thought it was a pretty depressing movie until, like, you know, I enjoyed how he learned to fly, and I enjoyed some of the characters, but I thought it was a pretty. They were so mean-spirited against this poor little elephant, and whatever, you know, but I really got sidetracked here. But I think it's something.
No, it's true. I think we're just, you know, speaking to that point. I really think that art is, you know, an imitation of reality. I mean, we're getting a lot of these not just because studios want to make money, because guess what? They've always wanted to make money. That's not a new thing, you know, ever since the dawn of man, or at least the dawn of capitalism. I feel like because we also live in a time of nostalgia, you know, in everything, you know, not just entertainment, but fashion, you know, and so many things, music as well. We kind of voting with our dollars or our euros or our pounds or our pesos or whatever currency you have. You know, we go into the movie,
we have ancient gold
coins, and you don't have to watch them. You can stay at home and you know, save your money for, I don't know, Oktoberfest or something. So
whatever.
Seriously, you know, I mean, it's just because it exists out there doesn't mean you have to watch it. I mean, as a musician, I come from a land of so many covers, and in the musical world, there's constantly people doing different versions of songs. You know, it forever will be. And in the film world, you know, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like some people just have to get over that a little bit. And look, if it's your most prized, precious film that you have a lot of memories with, look, I get it. I've got a lot of those films. But at the end of the day, you know, they exist, and you don't have to see them, and it doesn't really matter. No one's trying to you know, slight you or replace your memories, but it's certainly a product not just of money but of culture as it exists at the moment. So yeah, will that change? I don't know. Well, if we get more movies like Inside Out, I'm sure it will.
Yeah, totally. I totally have to agree with it. Actually, in Germany, we pay with old gold coins, just to answer your question.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding, of course. Yeah, and you had a lot of good points there. Exactly. Man, and if I think we can come to an end now of this now extended episodes. It holds the new record now. Yeah, we talked a lot more about it than I expected. We actually talked about every movie, but I actually think that's good because then that's behind us. We haven't forgotten anything, and before we say our goodbyes and we can plug our stuff, making a little commercial here. Let me just say, it was a blast talking to you. I had so much fun, and it was great to hear your opinion on these certain movies. And it's great to be able to branch out and meet other people this way who you can just geek out with,
Yeah, no, thank you. I feel exactly the same way. It was really nice to meet you and talk to you. And I mean, there's certain, certain discussion topics that will just mean you're going to talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I didn't necessarily expect that with this one. But it was fun to hear all your interesting points, and it was really nice to podcast with a European for a change, because I can expect rationale and logic and not so much pandering and too much positivity. So I definitely enjoyed that, because I feel like we gave very, very honest and transparent opinions with people. So it was a blast to talk to you. I'm sure we could talk for another 3 hours about Pixar, but we definitely did it justice.
Yeah. Next time all the short films. No, I haven't seen all of them.
Yes.
but I actually was very, very surprised, because I didn't know much about your nationality, except for you're broadcasting right now from Mexico. So I wasn't sure, and I was really surprised by your accent.
Oh, there we go.
or even like the lack of an accent. Who knows? But you definitely sounded differently than I expected to be. And I hope several people told me that I don't have a very noticeable accent. So I don't know if you had any thoughts about it, how I would sound, or how you expected me to sound.
No, well, one of my many jobs, because I'm a freelance maniac, is actually an English teacher. So I teach English to a lot of foreign people online every day. So I mean, I can certainly tell you're Germanic, but your language and vocabulary and grammar and structure of words and expressions, it's all super, super impressive. I mean, look, in England, we're always very, very impressed with Germans in anything, When I think of Germany, I think of, efficiency. But at the same, I'm sure everyone says that, but at the same time, what I love about the German nationality, aside from your excellent English, is just this idea that Germany is so kind of efficient and well planned out on the week, and then on the weekend, Germans just go crazy. Like they almost become different people. You can have a real drink with them and just relax so well, and just I don't know. I think English people are a little too serious sometimes, a little bit pretentious maybe. So
yeah, I get that totally. Yeah,
and it's true. That's not a stereotype. That's true. I have no love for England or English people whatsoever. So say whatever you want.
All right, that's fair.
Apart from sarcasm and my love of beer, that's the only thing I take from England.
Monty Python.
But no, seriously, yeah, you speak great, really, really well, and I think that at least here my accent has definitely slowly changed. Obviously, I still sound incredibly British to most people, but at least when I speak to British people, they tell me that there's a few Americanisms popping in here and there, but I just don't speak, English that much, as much as I did. And when I do, it's usually to North Americans. So, yeah my accent is lost in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean somewhere.
That's actually fantastic. Thank you so much for the compliment, because I get that a lot from certain people that I speak rather well. It's just, it's practice, even though I don't get much out there, to really speak to certain people, but that's the internet for. And to someone who listens to Film Brain vlogs every day, your accent really isn't noticeable at all, because obviously, Matthew Buck has a pretty distinct, stronger accent. So I kind of got used to all kinds of accents because I just love to listen to podcasts and commentary and everything, and like to watch movies in the English language. So yeah, but thank you so much for that. Now, before we can say goodbye, you can advertise your stuff now.
Okay, here we go. I had an absolute blast on this show. It was really, really fun to talk to you, and I hope the listeners got a kick out of it too. I hope they enjoyed it, and I would love to hear their thoughts and opinions and just what they think. Anything we didn't mention, probably wasn't much, but I mean, well, there's always more to discover. So yes, so like I said before, I'm a composer, I'm a podcaster, I am the social media manager and co-founder of SideshowSoundTheatre.com, where I write a Halloween music album every year with my best friend, William Dodson. And we produce the podcast, Sideshow Sound Radio, all about film scores, TV soundtracks, video game, media, and Disney music. And if you want to connect with us, you can find all our links on SideshowSoundTheatre.com. That's theatre spelt the British way with RE at the end, or the French way, I guess. And if you're talking to Sideshow on social networks, then you're talking to me, so don't be shy. Come and say hello. And if you want to reach out to me, then you can find all my links to, well, absolutely bloody everything. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat, Bandcamp, Pinterest, just you name it, I'll be there. But you can find all those links at WendellJones.com, Wendell-Jones.com. So, enjoy and come and say hello. I'm happy to meet all of you.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I will also put your links under the video as soon as you send it to me and the video goes online. When the video goes online, I will send the link to you, of course, so you can share it, so we can, so I can branch out as well. And I hope I can be a guest on one of your shows sometime in the future. You said that for the next, in the next little future, there's not much planned, but as soon as something is free, as soon as something is planned, just contact me, and I will be very, very glad to be a part of it. You can find all of my stuff. In case you don't know me, you can find all of my stuff on YouTube for the most part, under the channel name TheDeppert, or like when you type in Lasse Vogt, you can find all my short films and all my reviews there. For the German listeners or for English listeners, you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter under my name. My German soundtrack reviews you can find on scoregeek.wordpress.com. Very, very good stuff. You can run if you like. You can run a translation program over it. I tested it. It actually translates it pretty accurately with few exceptions, so you can fill in the blanks. My podcast you can find also on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much to be a part of it. I had a great time talking to you, and I hope we can repeat this about another topic sometimes in the near future, as soon as possible. Is there anything
Absolutely.
else?
How about tomorrow? No.
Tomorrow actually.
No, but seriously, thank you. I am honored to be here and talk with you. I had an absolute blast. It's really nice to, connect with, my fellow European podcasters back home for a change. And, it was a pleasure. And I hope all your listeners got a kick out of that. And, I mean, like I said, I think my last little thought would be, if anyone hasn't seen Inside Out, what are you doing? Go. Go now.
Go out of your chair and inside your chair again when you rented the movie or something.
Yes, I enjoy.
Whatever.
But yes, thank you.
For all the German listeners out there who don't know what the hell is Inside Out, it's actually the movie that's called Alles steht Kopf in Germany. So don't be weirded out anymore. I think now we covered it all. Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this. I had a great fun, and I hope we can repeat this again. I guess that's it. Tomorrow I actually have another recording, this time with a German podcaster. So I have a busy week. And on a Wednesday, I have 2 friends over who will watch Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers for the very first time. I'm very excited to watch that with them because that's my favorite movie trilogy. So I'm excited for what they say about it. And tomorrow, my theme on this podcast will be movies that were well reviewed but we don't like. So that will be an interesting topic. Definitely look forward to that, German listeners. Again, thank you so much. It was just a great fun, and I will talk to you very, very soon. I will send you a link and everything, and you will send me the links to all your stuff so I can link it and everything. And I think the episode has gone on for a long time, so I guess all we can do now say is goodbye. Also, please visit the site oliverseidermusic.com. The composer does the intro and outro music for my podcast. He is incredibly talented. When you want good music for your projects, go to him. He's great. Visit his website. I will also link it down below. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you. Bye. Tschüss.
Bye and tschüss out there as well. Have a great evening. Have a great time. And thank you so much. This was Fans About Films. Bye.